Right, this is going to be another episode of Summoning Insight. It's probably season something or other. I don't know, was it 4 at this point in time? How's it, 5? I don't know the logic of how it works. Problem is, we did, as everyone knows, scoff it by season 1 was like 400 episodes. No, it was about 200, I think, but it was still no outrageous amount of numbers. Obviously, we're in season 5 now, still in the spring split. If people don't know, you might think to yourself, the only downside to Summoning Insight now is there's not like a clear theme as to like who will be on the next episode, what region will they talk about. There are reasons why I thought we'd do a quick sidebar just to explain. One, unlike the original first season of Summoning Insight, let's be real, just the first couple of years, in the modern day, like I said in the past, it's kind of a waste of time, in my opinion, to like have a guy from like LEC who's a pro player and then just try and go in depth on like the 5th best Korean team and what they're doing with their top laners draft pick. Like, listen, every now and then you'll get lucky and there'll be a guy who actually really does watch the games, but half the time it's just going to be really awkward of us going like, shit, well, what he's just said's nonsense, but the problem is he's a really famous player, so we'll just awkwardly talk around it like what he said. So instead of doing that in general, right, we're just picking themes from what we think's interesting and all the guests. So obviously when Nymaera comes on in the later episode, we're actually going to be talking about LEC, and obviously in the past he's come on the show to talk about LGL, the Japanese league, but more specifically in the context of MSI and Worlds. If people haven't seen, he has been one of the guests that has appeared this season on LEC, because LEC does that weird thing, you notice, where like they sort of like trial talent almost before they give them the full gig now. Have you noticed that? It's like, on the one hand, I can't tell. I actually want to get your thoughts on this as someone who's obviously been in the league industry and has been in position to potentially, I mean, the joke is you never got to do it in your era, but in the modern day, you would have been on one of these, you would have come like Ashley for 1 week, or Papa when he came a few years back. It would have actually been within your wheelhouse to maybe go and do that. So I want to know what you thought of this, because there's a little background here fans not might understand, which is, first of all, I believe, I actually think off the top of my head, I can't remember if it was Shocks or Frostgone was the first to do it, but I know there's been this trend you've seen where the actual mainstays of LEC have basically all gone freelance, as far as I can tell, except I think maybe Quickshot. I think he works fully for Riot, right?
Yeah, as far as I know, he's still a full-time Riot employee. I will say that I never had like an official offer, but I did at one time a couple years ago have like preliminary conversations about me coming on the LEC, but I said no, I didn't want to do it.
I mean, just for an episode, as in like when they appear for a week like this, and they just
yeah. Sure. Not like full-time or anything like that, just as like a guest. So it's not like I haven't been talked to about that, but it never really went anywhere.
Oh, do you mean actually in the last couple of years?
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Right, I was meaning more as in if you'd have still been in Korea, like you were if you were your Atlas now, like you used to be, essentially, you would have done a week like Nymaera does, etc. My point was this, which I want to ask you about, is what do you think about the way they actually bring on talent for LEC specifically? Because as I say, they don't, like they did back in the day. What they basically did was they had the crew, they were on every episode, and essentially you either went from nothing to full time on the crew, and that was about it. Now it looks like what they do, Monty, to me, is almost like focus group style. They bring these people on. Some are big names, some are small names. Some have done like smaller things like Nymaera on NLC. Some are like people like Gashi Kang who are way bigger. And it's almost like they test the waters out. And then I get the vibe. They either see, is that all I need? Do I only need a sprinkle of Foxdrop 2 times a split? Or do I actually want him for the whole split? If I want him for the whole split, then we can eventually move to, you know, like Cage will start. Maybe you can come on properly. But like, I want to know what you thought of that. Because on the one hand, since it's Riot, my mind does go to the cynical approach of like they're trying to pay them the minimum possible while getting as much from their brand as they can, but at the same time not making their brand too big, because then they're Riot, and you wouldn't want anyone to associate anything but Riot League of Legends as the thing you want. You know that whole fuckery. So what do you think? Because if this was like CSGO, for example, dude, I'd actually say it's a good method. Like in CSGO, I sometimes get mad when people want a guy who's done like a tier 3 event to just be thrown on like the major grand final desk and like, dude, he could just sink instantly. So I don't mind it as like sort of a practical approach, I have to say.
So I'll take two sides of this one. So I think that there is both a very good side as well as you say, a more insidious side to what they do. I think the good side is that Quickshot, I know, is very dedicated to kind of showing people the ropes and being that mentor figure. I think it's obvious, like he himself, as he has said, like took a step back during Worlds, which makes a lot of sense because he has a lot of additional responsibilities. And this is exactly what I said, by the way, guys. And I didn't know anything. I just speculated that the reason why he wasn't at Worlds was because it was literally the only break he could get in an entire year, because he has to pre-plan for LEC for the next year. And he has, he has a large amount of authority and control, which I think has been good for the LEC broadcast.
Sure.
So it wasn't anything weird, as you guys were all speculating with Froskarin like releasing that really cryptic and stupid comment about him. It's like,
by the way,
spill the beans, Frost. Just spill the fucking
yeah,
beans,
exactly.
you know?
I should probably address that briefly because is it a bit weird that we haven't really said anything about that, right? All I'll say is this: one, right, that the reason I want to actually address this personally is I know in the past I've said something that people misread and actually thought maybe I was talking about Quickshot. In the past, I can't remember what video it was, but I've mentioned that there was like a member of high up talent who like could sort of play God with who got hired and who didn't. I actually wasn't talking about LEC or Quickshot there. I was actually talking about LCS. I won't say who in LCS. Look, luckily I don't like most of those people anyway, so you can speculate as freely as you fucking want on that one. If someone catches us stray on that one, bad luck. But I'll say this: it wasn't Quickshot I was actually referring to. I actually don't have a problem with Quickshot.
Yeah. So, you know, I think it also like Frostgren, I don't even understand the point of releasing all this like weird information or accusations about LEC because Frostgren, you're not going back to LEC. Like you know, after what you said on the way out, after all this stuff where Quickshot was kind of your boss and you tried to vaguely throw him under the bus. So what is the point? If there are real bad actors at LEC, what is the point of not saying exactly what happened and who they are? Seriously, like you might be able to fix things. Like you got nothing left to lose. So that's why it's all weird, because it makes me believe that it's not really that bad, because I don't see a downside to releasing this information if you're in her position. So that aside,
by the way, if you are someone in LEC though, this is what I will say that other people haven't thought through. Right? Look, Frostgren herself, I can tell you, I have seen her lie enough factually about things that were in my own life that I can no longer even trust what she says. But I will say this is why I want to extend this hand though. If you are someone who isn't Frostgren and you currently work on LCS, LEC, if this sort of thing ever does happen, by the way, for real, reach out to me or Richard Lewis or Monty, and we will either ourselves help you with it, look into it ourselves, potentially even publicize the topic, or we'll pass it on to the people who can. Because there's the other thing. If this really did happen, unfortunately, we have, for reasons alluded to before, we have to be skeptical somewhat of Frostgren's claims. There's no evidence to it. She hasn't named anyone. She hasn't even, as far as I know, sort of told someone else secretly who can know the... So again, we can't verify those. But if it ever is going on, I actually don't want someone to wait until they've left the company and then years later, just in a bitter rant, happen to mention that this is fucking up the whole industry. If I'm still in the industry, just let us know. We'll do what we can about it.
Yeah, and you know, frankly, guys, like we're one of the few groups of people who can do something, because not only are we never going to be able to work with developers already, but we don't want to. So it doesn't matter if we burn those bridges or not. So we're happy to do what we can to release information for the betterment of the industry. And we're one of the few people who are not reliant on developers for our incomes or for our lives. So who can do that, basically. But that aside, let's get back to the topic, which is, you know, I think that bringing on the talent is interesting because it allows people, as I was alluding to with Quickshot, I know he's very dedicated to showing people the ropes, and he's very passionate about developing caster talent, and he, frankly, has done a very good job of it. I think Quickshot is, you know, really good at his job. And it allows a kind of more low pressure way to bring people in. It's like they can bring them on the analyst desk or try and play to their strengths, and then slowly integrate them into casting as well, give them a couple of games, see how they do, give them feedback, and then, you know, iterate kind of week over week. Cause like Nymaera keeps coming back, right? So they must like what he's doing. I like what he's doing. Very eloquent and well-spoken guy, very smart about the game. As we've seen on this show in the past, which is why we keep bringing him back, cause he's great to talk to. And so, you know, I think it's well earned. Now, I think the dark side to this, so there's the medium side as well. So in between the darkness and the light is just that LEC has seen a lot of turnover. Like Frostgren left,
sure, yeah.
You know, some of their casters have been, you know, leaving and going to other projects. So it helps, frankly, to have people who know the ropes at least a little bit on LEC that you can start integrating into your broadcast, and then you can call them up full time as people kind of rotate out. As we saw this off season with Cadrill's cryptic announcements, seems like he wasn't going to be on the broadcast, which means there would have been another analyst hole. Seems like they came around to some sort of deal at the last second, but didn't really appear that Cadrill was going to be on the broadcast this year for quite some time during the off season. So that would have been another you know, another hole that could have been filled by somebody who has some experience on the broadcast already, some experience with the product. So I think that that's like a very smart thing, is to create a pipeline that you have people you can bring in as kind of people leave. Now, the kind of insidious part of that is that I think we can assume, this is all an assumption, I think we can assume from Cadrill not being on the broadcast to suddenly being on the broadcast that his deal must have changed, which meant that he was clearly, I would say, offered a deal he didn't like at first, said no, and then said yes to a better deal later on, which is also the more people you bring on the broadcast, the more pressure you create on your existing talent to kind of cave on deal terms. Yes. Because they are effectively training their replacements on broadcast or helping them out. Now you could say Quickshot's training them, but they're also helping these people out on the desk, which
you have to. Everyone's a teammate when you're on those broadcasts.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, it's a competitive industry. That's just the core of it at the end of the day. And like pretending like it shouldn't be competitive is stupid, because if there is competition, it will drive harder work ethics from the casters and have them be better. So I'm not complaining about that. Every caster, everybody in esports on the broadcast side is just as competitive as the players. I promise you that. You don't get that far without being hyper competitive yourself. But there's also, I think it is a method in which Riot can keep caster payments down. I think that is, it creates, because unfortunately in League of Legends, there's nowhere else to go. Riot has a monopoly. So now that OGN's out and you can't just fucking bounce to OGN and go to Korea, they control all of the major regions in the world in terms of the broadcast, which means they can unilaterally set broadcast rates across all major regions, which is bullshit as a caster. But unless you're going to switch games, you're fucked. Yes. So, it just creates even more pressure on the casters.
Yeah, that's the one part, by the way, where I think being broadcast talent in esports doesn't actually properly work, Monty, is because it's not actually like showbiz in that sense, because like the premise goes like this, right? It's not that you're a commentator. You're a commentator in League of Legends, and the in League of Legends part for most people is 98% of being a commentator, Yep. So the real issue is this. If they were willing to just use their skills and build up the general ability and then go, right, well, if this doesn't work out, then I'll go to Valorant.
That's what I did, right?
Yeah, but the problem is most people won't do it. Like in reality, this is, by the way, the number one problem behind the scenes that black pills everyone on the industry side of esports is broadcast media will always be fucked in game dev controlled games.
Yes.
Because ultimately the number one goal of everyone isn't get paid properly. You get what I just said? It's I want to be there and do the event. That is the number one goal. And so unfortunately, there's always going to be someone who, no matter how bad the deal you get offered, they'll say yes because they just want to be on they love League and they want to be on the broadcast, or they haven't done a big event or whatever. Unfortunately, that's why you can't resolve all these issues. Now, there is one actual upside that I've noticed that no one else has seen. And I'm just going to give the little heads up now. And sadly, because it's a Riot game, this might ruin everything, including the contracts, right? This is an area where LEC is fucking up, Monty, but they could nail it. And for the next split onwards, they could be so far ahead of the rest of League of Legends. And here's where it is. They don't properly use their people for skits at the moment, Monty. Now, people are going to say, that's not true. They did the whole music video. No, I'm talking about do like regular skits. Like, when me and Monty did some of the Insight that season for Cloud9, where we were in that like red zone studio, and we would have like a cold open to every single episode, right? Sometimes they had no effort whatsoever. Sometimes they were actually sort of like half an hour job, but they were like funny or they were just topical. Here's why LEC is missing a trick not doing this. Because if you follow the social media of the people on LEC, Shocks and Troublelink especially, have TikTok accounts and just post TikTok/Instagram reels almost every day. They just come up with whatever fun idea, whatever thing. Sometimes it's related to League, like Troublelinks are often about like Katarina, which is like the championship mains. Sometimes if it's like a Shocks one, it'll be like half about League, half about some cultural shit. Now, I don't always get the jokes because sometimes it's like some like millennial Zoomer shit, like maybe I don't know what song they're referencing, But as someone who's seen, like if you've seen most TikToks are just like people steal someone else's idea and do a worse version of it. These are actually funny. They're actually entertaining. They're pretty good. And they clearly just thought them up in like 5 minutes and just recorded it with whatever they had. So if I was the LEC, by the way, I would integrate this to your broadcast. You have people already doing this. Now, the reason I said, unfortunately, I'm almost remiss to actually give them ideas is because I don't want them to now be like, yeah, he's right, Monty. Right, put it in the contracts. They're only allowed to make TikToks and LECs for reels for us only, and they only get paid X for it. It's like, no, I don't want you to ruin it. Listen, don't ruin everything for everyone. I'm just saying, if you're actually smart, these people are already showing you the way forwards. And also, they could do some sick content on the broadcast. I think it could do some really funny shit. It would also be a great way to just include. By the way, if people don't know, on that Shocks episode we did, Cage made that hilarious move, like we almost shot. I'm sure he could do loads of these as well. So I would get them involved because to me, this is like an area you're sort of missing a gear on this. You could make an extra level of entertainment on LEC, in my opinion. I think it'd be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I also think that those kind of things are very easy to insert into the broadcast, like throughout the day. One of the things that we're really going down a production rabbit hole, but one of the things that really frustrates me is that, so LEC likes to do what are called cold opens, which in television are kind of these non sequitur starts to the show, right? And that works when people have appointment viewing television, like cold opens on, on sketch comedy shows are very famous, right? Or on kind of like late night talk shows, but that's because people will start watching the broadcast. What doesn't make any fucking sense is when you put your skit at the beginning of a sports broadcast when no one's watching because there's a pre-show beforehand, right? Right at the start of a game. You want to insert these things into the middle of the broadcast to have maximum exposure. So it doesn't make any sense that when they're actually structuring this kind of content or when they're actually putting it in the broadcast. It's the same thing like on LCS when they like play the frankly cool intro video that they made this year, which I enjoyed. But the reason why OGN's intros worked was because they played them right before every single game on the broadcast started. Yep. So you saw it and got hyped every single time. Like there's a method to doing this that maximizes the viewership. Yeah. You have to spam it. You have to insert it. When we were making skits on Flashpoint, they were kind of peppered and sprinkled throughout the broadcast. Like there's a way to do this right. And so I feel like a lot of this content, it gets viewed on their YouTube channel, which is also great, right? But when we're doing it for Summoning Insight, most of our viewership comes from VODs. So people start at the beginning of the VOD. That's the part of the video that people see the most. That's why that's where that content goes.
Yes.
Right. Anyway.
No, I'm with you. I've always thought that was also the flaw, by the way. Imagine this as well. Right, I think it's bad enough that I've worked essentially an entire individual's career just as an analyst in CSGO. Like, I remember, Monty, I've been doing it since 2013, for fuck's sake. Like I said, I've done an entire just full-time job alone as an analyst, and yet you do know the 99% of my clips just, like, didn't even make it. They're just on the cutting room floor, mate. They're not even on the internet. Like, they didn't put them up on the internet. So I agree. I've always thought the way we show the games is so mental. The idea you just tune in, the game's just begun, or I'm in Big Ban already. Like, what?
It's just so funny, Thorin, because, like, OGN showed us how to do this like 20 years ago. And nobody fucking paid attention. Except for me, because that's how I structure Flashpoint's broadcasts.
Now, here's the thing. Watch this segue, Monty. Now, speaking of, talent where you're not sure where they'll be. Will they be there in 2 weeks? Will they not be there in 2 weeks? Like Foxtrot, Cage Roll, Troubling. Well, speaking of people where you don't know if they're going to be there in a week or two, what about TSM? Who the fuck's going to be in TSM next week? Who's going to be in TSM ever again after this split? Who knows even if they'll have an owner at the end of the season? All cards are on the table now. So people don't know, not only does the TSM misery continue, oh yeah, don't worry, like it hasn't stopped yet, boys. And the joke even is, like, the one game they won is even questionable as fuck. Like, Immortals low-key almost gave them that game. I know.
Yeah, let's be real, guys. Let's be real.
Like, it could actually be like 0-8 or whatever.
Should be 0-9. Like, if we're being honest, like, they shouldn't have won that Immortals game. Immortals fucking threw that game. I actually kind of like watching Immortals play, weirdly. I mean, we can get into that. I think they're a team on the rise, and I think they've been consistently improving, and they have some good pieces. I think they they can be a playoff team. Yeah, they lost to Golden Guardians. That was, I think, disappointing. But at the end of the day, like, they've actually shown some good flashes. They just need to be able to kind of not int leads and then finish games. But I think they're close, weirdly. But anyway, TSM, yes. There's a world where they're 0-9. You could also make an argument that maybe they could have won that C9 game. I think that people tunneled in that C9 game on the fact that they had so many kills early, but the goal difference, it was like they were down like C9 was down like 8 kills, but the goal difference was only 1,200. So really, it was just a matter of C9 actually effectively funneling gold onto Summit's Camille, which is exactly where you want it. It's the player you want it on, certainly, especially after we saw some of his individual performances on Jace this last week. So I think it was deceptive because people got sucked in by the kill counter and weren't actually looking at it. But could TSM have won that game? possibly, right?
Hey, at least we're in better position than most of the other games. Like, we can put it that way. Now, I agree. Like, let's be real. Cloud9's one of the best teams. So just the roster-wise, I would have never trusted them to execute. But I agree. Like, at least there was a possibility there. Here's the problem, though. We're not even just going to now do a thing about Cloud9 being shit. Because as I said before, if TSM rather, if TSM really is this bad, by the way, spoiler, there won't be in many episodes of Summoning Insight. We don't spend like 45 minutes talking about teams that are 10th place in the fucking LCS. I don't know if you've followed Summoning Insight for many years now. Like, it's been ages since we did the whole thing where we talk about every team. So, but there is, thankfully, one thing you can still rely on TSM to provide is A, ridiculous fan corp, which will always be something we might like to address, and then B, better drama with the players. Always love a bit of the old drama with the players, Monty. So as usual, we've had some drama, and spoiler, I'm gonna ruin it already for everyone, right? It's not actually like top draw fucking drama where, you know, someone has done something and someone has said something and we might have like totally different sides on this. Spoiler, it's pro players doing that thing they love to do, where what they do is they go, yeah, I might be losing and I might be really bad, but you don't know exactly why and what exactly is happening in my scrims. So how dare you speculate on why I'm bad? You know when they do that thing, Monty, where it's like, I have a secret, but I'm not going to tell you. Why should I tell you? Like, so joke is Spick has done that, right? Because he's gotten triggered. I assume he's just seen a comment on Reddit or somewhere, you know. He's seen someone essentially suggest that like the benching of Shenyi was like, you know, I don't know, did the player with it in on it or whatever. And then essentially, instead of going, well, I am in like the last place team and my owner has absolutely, and GM have absolutely fucked this off season. And now, even I don't know what's going to happen with the roster. So maybe I should give fans sort of, you know, a fucking bone. Maybe I should give them a break and let them get in on the act. No. He's scolding all the fans for not knowing what he knows. And by the way, spoiler, he's not going to tell you that either. So come on, let's adjust this tweet then. Come on. Oh, it's epic. And by the way, spoiler, we'll get to it in a minute, but Double F's follow up. Chef's kiss. We'll get to that in a minute. That was good. That was a good time.
It's on your screen right now. Speaker's tweet is, the narrative has gotten out of hand. Oh my God. By the way, this was a narrative perpetuated by TSM. TSM made this narrative by posting about it. You fucking idiot. Like,
I love it.
Not Speaker, but you fucking idiots is in TSM. Like, you can't just like make this very poorly worded and cryptic Twitter statement about Shenyi and Yursan and make implications based on that and then just be surprised, like a surprise Pikachu when the fucking clapback happens on players. So here's what it says. The narrative has gotten out of hand. No one on the team was against Shenyi's shot calling. In fact, when he first told us after 0-4, we all agreed. No player played a part in deciding his benching. It was not anything gameplay related. I wish my only job is to jungle. So here's the thing. He's basically throwing the management under the bus because it sounds like the players want to play with Shenyi, or at least he does, right? And it's not anything gameplay related. So unfortunately, the only thing you've done here is either made your management seem incompetent.
Yep.
They are. Or you said Shenyi is a shitty teammate. Basically, because if it's not gameplay related, it could be attitude related, right? So now you're just revealing even more weird things about your team. And I just, like, if you don't want this narrative, then TSM should not be the one perpetuating it in the first place. Like, it's the org's fault. And here's one thing I will say that's very positive about Reginald over the years, Thorin. In these situations in the past, Reginald is exceptional at tanking aggro. He will go and like create some drama elsewhere, or he will take responsibility, or he will just start insulting people on the internet, and he will draw all the aggro to himself. Because Reginald's not a coward, guys. He's an asshole, but he's not a coward. And so
drama works, but as you say, like in the past, he would have, at a minimum, he would have done something like, if they'd still been a top team, you know, he would have like challenged fucking Cloud9 to some bet or something, wouldn't he? Or something silly where something embarrassing happens.
Yeah, exactly. So this is one of those situations where you could really use Reginald's strengths to like diffuse this, but you can't. Like they can't right now because he can't be an asshole because it will only make his problem worse.
Yes.
But he was always good at this, frankly. And this just goes back to like, nobody is taking responsibility. I was punishing myself by watching Hotline League because Dominic Callis was on there. And basically, he says he doesn't have the gameplay knowledge to make decisions effectively, but he kind of just, played like the shell game as to who was making the decisions, and ultimately nobody takes responsibility. And like this goes into a bunch of issues within League of Legends, both on the team side in this case, where no one is stepping up to take responsibility or be the figurehead.
On that topic though, as a quick aside, why was he the guest then? Like, I don't understand. Like, if he doesn't know anything like about the game specifically, so he couldn't address, like, for example, like, I do think that player should be benched or shouldn't. Then what's the point in him being on the episode? Like, isn't that just that's like bringing on the guy where it's like, this guy works in this guy works in the legal department. It's like, well, then what's he going to comment on? Like, why was he a guest then? I'm a bit confused. What was he supposed to provide insight on?
I don't know. I don't know. Basically, like. He said that he was he had delegated people to Chawi and this assistant GM that they had brought in, who's now on site, who used to live in Taiwan or who is from Taiwan, I guess. And so basically was talking about the infrastructural changes. So there was a point to it, but at the end of the day, like the fact that nobody is stepping up and taking responsibility. And like, this has been a problem within broader esports, certainly. Right. But especially on the League of Legends side, now this is a team instance of it, but Riot does this as well. The fact that the people who are supposed to be the commissioners, the faces of various leagues are ghosts, guys.
Oh, it's mental, isn't it?
Ghosts. So here's a fun one, Thorin. So there was a kind of big deal with a pause and like Faker accidentally using a flash in this game against Damwon this last week that resulted in a remake. I think that was the right ruling. I think the problem was Damwon was kind of being like dicks about like, not wanting to chrono break or whatever. We're not going to get into the whole thing, but I think it was the right decision. So the right decision was
they're losing at the moment, mate. Put it that way. That's all I'll say.
But the thing about it is that what's so weird to me is that they have released, this video with the referee comms, and the ref didn't stop the game, even though that Faker's headset was having problems during champ select. And they should have just obviously just been like, okay, we'll just fix this problem before going into the game, because then this problem would have even existed. So that was the real issue, right? But here's the thing, Thorin. No one actually knows who the LCK commissioner is. No one knows. It does have a commissioner, guys. But this person doesn't want their name to be known, and they don't want to take public responsibility. And it's like, why are we like throwing this ref under the bus by putting out voice comms and like a Twitter statement when this person can just get up and make an announcement or say, here's why the decision was reached? What I don't understand is like why everybody in this fucking space is just such a coward. And it's like the LCS commissioner was a ghost last time. They have a new commissioner now. We'll see how that goes. Overall, we'll give her some time to like settle in and see if things are going to change. LEC commissioner.
Do you want a little mini rant?
Hold up. LEC commissioner was active on Twitter, but again, these aren't people who are like showing up and actually making announcements.
Oh wait, is the LEC guy the one who like said that I have had like a net negative impact on esports? That guy.
I don't think he's the LEC commissioner anymore. I think they changed. I actually don't even know who the new one is. I mean, this is the point. Is like nobody knows who does these jobs, and nobody is willing to like step up and take responsibility in this industry. It's insane.
Yeah, here's the thing, though, I will say. This is why, though, right, Monty, you can't have people like Riot. I know it sounds mad because they're doing the league. Essentially, they can't, if you want this to be done well, they can't appoint the sort of yes man that they nearly always appoint to these jobs. Because it's a bit like, the analogy I would draw, Monty, would be what's going on in Counter-Strike right now with the ESIC, whatever it's called, like the Electronics, Ethical
Sports Integrity Coalition.
Yeah, whatever the fuck the name of it is. But basically, yeah, it's basically like supposed to be sort of like a kind of a governing body that can arbitrate when issues come up, etc. It's supposed to stop cheating and match fixing and collusion and conflict, all the things you'd want someone to oversee, right? But here's the problem it runs into all the time, because obviously me and Richard have like heavily followed this and talked about on by the numbers. The main problem it runs into that I've identified is this, Monty. The main guy is basically sort of a milquetoast-esque character who's just sort of like, well, I'm going to look into if any wrongdoing has happened and I will have a stern conversation with them and then we will determine sanctions. It's like, that's not the guy guy you want for that job. Like, that job, for real, that's supposed to be some Batman-type motherfucker who's like, I'm here to hold everyone accountable, and I don't care about if I look at them. That's why I even say Batman, but it's supposed to be at the end of the fucking Dark Knight where it's like, we have to chase him, Sam, because someone needs to. That You're supposed to be Batman. Like, I always tell you, if I want, like, listen, people give fucking all those American sports franchise league commissioners so much shit, but the joke is that is their job. Literally, Roger Goodell's job is that you hate him instead of hating the NFL. And so if you're a New England Patriots fan, instead of going, well, I'm not even watching the NFL then if they're going to cheat Brady, you're supposed to go, it was just that Buddy Goodell. He just hated Brady personally. He definitely cheated. But no, why can't we cheat every time at the Patriots? Just one time we got punished. That's unfair. But yeah, so basically the joke is that's actually essentially like a feature of their job is tanking the aggro. So I agree with you, Monty. The premise is I want there to be like a famous person for LCS commissioner, but the premise is it's someone who actually, if anything, would almost want to like battle people if you say you disagree with things to go on. No, I'll go ahead, Ted. I'll come on your show, etc. That would be great for everyone. The problem is though, like I don't think it'll ever happen because, as I alluded to, I think Riot intentionally picks the right people who know which way their bread's buttered, as it were. So unfortunately, this is all again we're in the abstract realm. I don't think it's going to happen in reality.
Well, it's also true that basically everyone who has been a commissioner or been in positions of decision-making power on the logistics or side, like the tournament operations side, has been internal to Riot. Like these are people who have never worked in another esport for the most part. Right. Like Nick Allen did at IPL briefly, right? But that was in the very early days of esports. And so it's hard because these people actually, frankly, are frequently not qualified for these positions because they've never run tournaments. They don't have broader esports experience. And they're put into these positions, which is weird. And yeah, they don't want to be public figures because they're not what I would call esport. Many of them are not what I would call esports end gamers. And what an end gamer is a person who is in esports as their career end game, right? A lot of these people look at John Spector over in the Overwatch League. He's now moved into a corporate position on the main Overwatch team, right? And these people are climbing within the companies, but they'll pop over to the development side or to a different part of one of these giant companies because they're career climbers. They're not esports end gamers. And what you need in a commissioner role is an esports end gamer who's going to take that position very seriously and who is willing to put their reputation on the line, knowing that may prevent them from climbing the ladder further if they make a mistake, right? But these people don't want it. They're too risk averse, right? But you can't be a risk averse league operations person. That's impossible.
Oh, no, exactly. Yeah, I agree. By the way, before obviously at the moment we've made it fairly like meta contextual and about the comment. One thing I'll do is first of all I'll read out Doublelift's for a parody of the tweet because again, look, he doesn't always land, but this is pretty fucking good. This was some quality material. I'd give this a solid 4 out of 5 stars. Basically, you remember the tweet that was on the screen that was shown, right? Doublelift did a parody tweet and he just said the narrative has gotten out of hand. No one on the team was against Reggie's house selling. In fact, when he first told us after 0-4, we all agreed. Because obviously Reginald did that tweet where he said he'd never let the team become like CLG. Now he'd sell his car and his house if that happened, right? Then he says, no player played a part in deciding his asking price. And it was not anything gameplay related. And then here's the real like cherry on the cake. He goes, I wish my only job is to lose games. That slide, listen, if it was all about just the last slide double, if you nailed the landing of it. That was very legit. I like that. That was pretty good.
By the way, Thorin, can we talk about how
they just lose every fucking game? Don't they? Give me a break. It's so dark, mate. Come on.
Can we talk about? I want your take on this, Thorin. So pick one of these two options. Is TSM so incompetently run that they took the MVP of last split and then made the team so bad that they have now nearly lost every single game? Or is the MVP test in LCS eye test completely fucking busted and we keep getting Svenskeren, who's immediately benched for Blabber, or Spica, who is now on a last place team? Like, what is going on with the MVP over there? What's your take?
Here's the problem. Right, if I think about it already, I'm starting to get a bit nervous now, Monty, because you notice the MVPs you've listed, like Svenskeren won, Spica won, like Blabber's won. There's a lot of fucking junglers winning the MVP.
Right?
And I will say this, I have always thought in League, I always thought this is a general trend, but it's actually particularly watching the ERLs in Europe and then watching people go to LEC. Dude, jungle is the most misleading role if you're on the best team, in my opinion. As in, the jungler on the best team, just, it's not even that, it doesn't mean you're not good. I think everything gets boosted through the roof. Like, it's the reason why, like, Inspired looked so insane on Rogue. He had, like, 3 winning lanes all the time, and he's fucking farming. Like, what do you expect? Yeah, he's going to be up in CS. He's going to be, like, knowing the path of the other guy. He's not even trying to gank half the time. Like, yeah, there's a million metrics that you can sort of trick, I think, for a League in that sense. So the problem is, I do think it was a legit actual MVP pick. Like, if you look at the time in the regular split, remember, the award's only for regular season. In the regular split, TSM was the #1 ranked team, and then when you looked at all the players, Spicker was the only real one you could say was, like, the best at his role, right? So in my opinion, they just sort of inferred it. And then you look, who else were you going to pick, right? Like 100 Thieves sort of were like up and down. EG sort of fell off. Like C9 and TL were fucking around with the rosters. So I think that was one where it's like, here's the thing. I do think if I had a gun against my head, I probably would say Speaker was the MVP. Like I said, if I just work through the logic. Put it this way, I don't think it was an example where it was like there's times when like Bjergsen or Doublelifters won where like they were like far and away the best player in the league or like an incredible, like you could just see the eye test was like he has to be the MVP. I don't know that it was like that. I do think though, if I had to answer the question, it's probably #1. It's probably that it's just incompetence with how they GM'd the squad. Because here's what I don't get, right? Over in Europe, people might know, I've sort of been calling the death of Fnatic, and actually it turns out I've been presumptuous. Like I thought they were going to die out when they went to the Nemesis self-made one, because I knew there was going to be roster like fucking complications there. Then I thought when they lost those players and they had to do the team with Whip or roll swap, I thought, oh, is this the end? Like, mate, if you roll swap instead of getting a real player, like maybe it's the end. But somehow they've obviously in this last offseason done an amazing job with GM and they've got like the best team on paper. So whereas actually I've been waiting for Fnatic to die out, dude, this looks like TSM is dead. It looks like the org is dead in League of Legends, because I refuse to believe, mate, that these were the best players you could get this offseason. I don't even buy this whole angle they have of like they scouted these players. There are better players that they could have scouted even. Like this just doesn't make sense. Like this almost looks like someone at the 11th hour put this roster together and they just got whoever was available. Like it doesn't make sense on either level, Monty. It doesn't make sense in terms of money. They could easily offer the money to get really good talents that are like up and coming talents in Europe, in China, in Korea.
Or they can just get Jensen.
Of course. Yeah, they could also get established players that are available now to this day that would join potentially tomorrow. Like, something's weird about this whole thing. I even thought that was the weirdest part about what you've just referenced there with Jensen, is as soon as, this is where Reginald isn't smart, is the second Bjergsen tells me, I'm leaving, and by the way, I'm going to Team Liquid, that's where I go, so if I was to announce Jensen instead, then I get like the whole narrative that we got Team Liquid's old mid laner. By the way, spoiler, Jensen would be better right now than Bjergsen. I don't know if people have been watching those fucking games. Bjergsen isn't tearing it up right now as a mid laner. Dude, it would be an way to immediately sort of like check the move, as it were, in the chess sense. You know, it's like, right, you do your move, Bjergsen's Team Liquid, I'll take Jensen in the TSM then. But they didn't do any of that. And that's why, to me, it has to be a GM failure, dude. Because there's no upside to this team. Like, you can't go with the angle of either these are like the hot new prospects that everyone was after, or these are big names, or this is like a big name. It's nothing. Aside from the idea that someone knows so much about like second and third tier Chinese League of Legends that they secretly found the next talents, which essentially all you're doing there, by the way, is a bad Chinese knockoff of what LS has just done for Cloud9, you idiots. You've actually just like thematically fit the region, but not in terms of like a good story. Because there is no good story to this team. You know what I mean? Like, at least sell me what the vision of the team was. Because there's another thing. They also, because Reginald's is the 1 year he hasn't been front facing because of all the shit he's going through, they also have done a terrible job in that sense. Like, think about it, right? If something happens in Cloud9, Jack or Steve Arnett are going to appear on camera at some point explaining their version of the reasons as to why they did it. We don't actually get any info about this TSM team. That's probably the most frustrating part. I can't tell. Are they just here's what I need to tell. I'll flip it back to you, Monty. My vibe goes like this. Did TSM actually choose these players? So I'll give you an example. Based on all the info I have, it's actually true that G2 could have had a way better AD carry than they have now, but they purposely wanted the Targ Armors guy, and they thought that this particular bot lane was so worth it. They even said to me, essentially, we're willing to gamble the idea people will think this was the best person we could get because we think it's sort of like the sleeper OP, like it'll work out, it's the better move. Do you think they genuinely thought these were the best players? Or do you think, this is what it sounds crazy to say, but do you think no one wants to join TSM anymore? I get the vibe, like the second part's not as crazy as it once would have sounded, you know.
So I think that Lena in some Twitch chats revealed that she wanted to like bring Jensen and Doublelift onto the roster. And that vision appears, although Parth hasn't said it, that vision appears to have been signed off on by Parth as well. So I think that was the roster that they wanted. Now, from what I understand from my information behind the scenes, because what Lena said was it was true that Reggie didn't think that there was the value there in spending that much money. Now, from what I have heard from other sources,
same guy who just paid that massive bag to sort out last year.
So
I love this guy. It's such a moron.
It is hilarious. It is hilarious.
Go on.
But I mean, to be fair, maybe he learned from his mistake. That's
Listen, I'm definitely not going to give him that concession, Monty. I have to see that proven before I believe that. But okay, fair enough.
So anyway, I have heard behind the scenes that from other people that TSM did not want to spend a lot of money this year, and I heard that while this was happening, like late last year, basically. Because they didn't see the value. And remember that this all comes from the fact that the FTX deal, they can't call themselves TSM FTX in LCS. They have to just call themselves TSM. Even though FTX sponsors the league, Riot will not allow naming rights for crypto, even though they spam FTX. Whole thing is just fucking weird, frankly. Like either don't allow crypto or do, just pick one. So anyway, they can't do that. So because the value of the FTX deal is not in League of Legends because of the restrictions placed on the sponsorship, what you guys will not know is the following information, which is that many of these crypto exchanges, when they have been talking to teams, okay, and I know this from my conversations with team owners, have directly said that they want rosters in Valve games, whether that's Counter-Strike or Dota, as a condition of crypto exchange sponsorship, because there are no restrictions on the kind of marketing that they can do in those Valve games.
By the way, that actually checks out as well, because even though it didn't actually end up happening with the Brazilian Last Dance one that I told you about before, it has been rumored that maybe TSM comes back in a CSGO for a while now. So I wonder if that's actually like, as you're saying,
and guess where they just came back, Thorin?
Similar rumor that Cloud9 might come back in. Yeah, I mean, these would all make sense then. Yeah.
Yep. TSM picked up a Dota roster relatively recently, which is, another indication. So I think that part of it is that the value of the crypto sponsorship, as much as it is, again, we've been over this before. Part of this is definitely because of TSM's advertising capacity on their websites, but part of this is also that they have been picking up new rosters. I imagine they will pick up a Counter-Strike roster at some point in time. I think why they picked up a Dota roster first is because the Counter-Strike fan base doesn't like TSM very much.
True.
Because of what they did to the Astralis roster before they were Astralis. So I think the CS
and even the PEA shit, if you remember, that kind of like left people.
Yeah.
They sided with the players on that one. Yeah.
So I think many people in the Counter-Strike world have a sour taste in their mouth about TSM, but it's probably, it's like 5 years past that right now. So probably
if you had a really good team, they'd forget it.
Anymore.
They'd forgive you if the team was good enough, put it that way.
Yeah. Anyway, so this is all to say that I think there are reasons why they wouldn't want to spend money in League of Legends based on this deal, which are legitimate reasons. And so, I had heard that before, but also there were a bunch of kind of like up and coming Chinese players that were tied to this. We know that they did these tryouts in the boot camp. So they legitimately believed that these were the best players that they could get in terms of bang for buck. I think if they wanted some larger name Chinese players, it may have been difficult to convince them to come over based on the roster that they have, because when you look at the pieces they had, I mean, the pieces were Spica and Huni. I mean, that's not a honeypot, like nobody's really, Spica's good, but it's not like, oh, I get to play with Core JJ, right?
The problem if you don't get
level of attraction.
This is where, Monty, your now infamous statement that you can't always take at face value what Koreans, but I'd extend it and say Asian professional League of Legends players say, because they actively pander to the Western audience. So I'm sorry to inform people, but in the modern day, especially, by the way, in the modern day, with no Doublelift, there's no motherfucking pro player from LCK or LPL who gives a flying fuck about LCS. They're not watching it. If they even did, by the way, best case scenario, they're watching when like Cloud9 plays Team Liquid. That's it. Yep. They're not watching. Like, basically, the joke would be any new school person won't even know who Huni is. Remember, dude, he hasn't been to Worlds in ages. And then if you're not new school, Forget about that. Like, no one knows who the fuck Speak is. Like, to them, he's the guy who went 0-6 at Worlds. That's it. They don't know him beyond that, mate. They don't know him from Adam. They don't know, like, they don't, oh, you mean the MVP of last? They wouldn't know that, mate. They wouldn't know that in a million years. So I agree. Unfortunately, there's no name power, a star power to draw you over. There isn't. Like, as you say, you've got to almost use, like, the difference is, the reason Cordia J is a mega one, it's because they know he won Worlds. He won Worlds, for fuck's sake, and he's been back to, like, every World since, so I'm with you, mate. The problem they have is, it's like I've been talking about, there is currently no reason left to join TSM. They won't pay you the most. They don't have any big names left. I'm sorry, Spicket is not a big name. Huni is not a big name anymore. We're talking double if Jensen, like, big name level. And then thirdly, there's not even, like, the whole angle of, like, oh, but I'm going to play with, like, sick you're not playing with famous teammates for loads of money or with really good up-and-coming teammates. Like, at the moment, like, all trust is lost in this institution. It's why I really wonder, like, I'm glad you gave that info there, because I know there are some competent people within TSM, or at least there were in the past. So that's why I didn't understand how they got this roster in the end. I thought even they'd trip over and get some decent players, mate. Like, obviously, there was a whole story, if people remember, where they were supposed to have fucking Mickey X, and I heard they were going to get both the people. I heard they were going to get Niski as well. Like, obviously, these were guys who were, funny enough, Niski's still available right now, fuck's sake, but he's just appearing on core streams. So they could have had a way better roster than this. Almost every roster I've heard that they were going to put together was better than this.
I mean, the thing is, they can still make a pivot, right? It's not like
Jensen
isn't available. Yeah. It's not like Niski isn't available. You know, the fact that Mickey X went unsigned as long as he did was kind of crazy in and of itself. But I think that the turnover this org has had, they're bringing in new people to operate these teams. It seems like they're bringing people who are remote on site now. It seems like, you know, people are leaving. Two of the most important people, which were Lena and Parth to the League of Legends team, have left very recently. So, and Reggie, I would imagine, as we've talked about on earlier shows, over the course of this investigation, considering that the Players Association itself is involved, one of the preconditions of the independent Riot investigation has to be that he cannot communicate with the League of Legends team. He has to recuse himself. Now, I don't know that for sure, but I can't imagine a world where that's not true.
So it seems suspicious that he hasn't said anything.
Yeah.
Like, but he's not really the sort of guy who can handle it. He can't restrain himself normally. You can't. I'll say this as well, by the way. The joke is this. Look, if I wanted, like, the prestige value, the narrative, like I said, even a great player who's still good at Worlds, I would have signed Jensen personally. But even if you didn't, Monty, right, this is where I really wonder about the vision of TSM. Because I actually don't think, sadly, that TSM truly ever got the idea that, like, we're playing the villain part in wrestling here. We're supposed to say fuck everyone. I think they just were a bunch of douchebags led by a cunt who just was so obnoxious. You guys then just went, no, he's actually a genius. And this is like 5D Jenga, and he tried to make me mad. So he didn't. Reginald wishes he was loved, you morons. He's just really bad at it, because guess what? He's a fucking idiot who's not a great guy. So here's what I would have done. Personally, if you want the thematic, like, this guy has to join if you give him the offer, and more importantly, he would just fit your current team perfectly. It's Jizuke, mate. The guy already is quite well loved, plays a really entertaining style, win or lose, and he trash talks already. He's tailor-made to be the villain, for fuck's sake. I would bring Jizuke in. That's the signing I would do, dude. Like, that transforms this into, like, must watch League of Legends tomorrow.
I have to say, the combo of Huni and Jizuke on the same
hilarious,
team,
wouldn't it?
The level of coin flip would be so insane that I would probably be entertained watching.
It'd be entertaining as fuck. What are you talking about? Exactly. And by the way,
a hell of a combo.
If we have Huni and Jizuke, the bot lane can just chill now, mate. They don't need to worry about anything. Like, at this point in time, you're just on, like, fucking prey gorilla status or something. Like, just chill, homie. Just chill. Get to that team fight with one item. That's all I ask. You know.
It would be hilarious to have those two players on one roster together. That would be great. I mean, what's funny is that they were on the same team. They just didn't play together.
I will also say, like, here's the other question before we wrap this up, because we'll go to the Nymaera one soon. But here's what I'll ask is this, right? From the first games you've watched, Monty, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but I watched a bunch of these games especially when I saw how much TSM was losing by and how bad some of the fucking drafts were. And I watched because I didn't want to like have false hope. Like if I actually watched the games, Monty, and then the eye test was like, actually these are close losses, and if they just drafted a different champion there, they would have won. Then it'd be like they'll probably turn it around. Remember LCS is mad forgiving, so it's like they could probably make the last playoff spot. Dude, after watching some of these games, it ain't gonna even end, guys. Like the pain is going to continue. This team is no joke. If they're not literally the last place team, they're going to be second to last place at the end of the split. Like I don't see how this turns around. It looks really depressing.
The funny thing, Thorin, is a point Dom made on our show, The Jungle, was an accurate one, which is that the way they were winning or attempting to win, the one game they won was due to them playing like Enchanter top, like cheese meta, basically. And if they're practicing that, that's going to go away soon. It's not going to be possible to play that anymore. So basically, they were all inning last week on these strategies that are going away. So they're not even learning how to play the real game properly. So it's only going to make them lose worse in the long run, which is true.
Yeah, indeed. And then also, I'll add that in as well. The one part people never mention as well as this part, Monty, is like, I still don't. This is so weird to me, dude. Why did they sign Choi as their coach? Have I missed something? I feel like I just woke up and it's like people just. I mean, like this is like one of the bad David Lynch movies, Monty, where stuff just happens and you're like, I don't really understand why that. What's going on right now? Who is that character? Like, this is like fucking Inland Empire or something. Why is he the coach of TSM? Have I missed something? If people don't know, the storyline of Choi is a really interesting story. If you're like a G-Bay guy making a documentary about like the beginning of League of Legends 7 years ago, like how's he even relevant now? Like what is this signing? Like am I missing something? Normally the coach is like the focal point, like the lightning rod for the credit, abuse, criticism. Like no one even mentions him, dude. It's like I had to look it up to remember he was even the coach of the team. Like what's going on? Have the lunatics taken over the asylum? What's going on, Reginald?
So I think this is like the whole construction of this roster is just like the scuffed, we have X at home meme because, Chawi's like, oh yeah, he's part of that, legacy of Southeast Asian players. He's been coaching the Hong Kong attitude, right? And he's like, he speaks Chinese. He can talk to all these other like Southeast Asian coaches that are running some of the best teams in the world. He's part of like, I mean, he's Singaporean, I believe, but he can talk with like the Taiwanese gang that secretly, the Taiwanese Illuminati that runs all the best teams in the world. But it's like he's not that. He was never part of.
You mean you think the meme is like, like it's like Reginald again. Reginald in this scenario is the boomer industrialist who just sits in the boardroom and he goes, oh, I've heard about this LMS Illuminati, Monty, who are running the coaching game. I want that. And then they were like, oh, we've got it at home, sir. It's like, oh, excellent.
Yes,
and then it turns out, oh, but he's got Choi. Yeah, what the fuck? And it's like they've even scoffed that he's not even Taiwanese. Yeah, they've scoffed everything. There you go.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, and it's like the same thing. It's like, can we get an LPL star? It's like we have a Chinese star at home, and it's like fucking Kea Duo or something. It's the same shit. It's like the whole roster was like based on this idea of what should happen, but they just ended up with like the mega scuffed version of that thing. I don't know.
Man alive. We talk about some good League of Legends now. Should we switch to the LEC topic?
Sure. Let's get Nymaera on.
Yeah, so obviously, I don't know. Listen, I lied last time. We don't play a whole song. Apparently, it depends how quickly we set it up. But now something will happen. A screen will change. The voices will go off. We will go on a different call. Oh, I've just revealed all the fucking secrets behind the curtain there. Do not pay any attention to the man behind the curtain. And then suddenly, Nymaera will appear and we'll be talking about LEC after this break. Right, we're back, and obviously we're joined now by our guest, which is Nymaera, who you might know, as I alluded to in the intro, as the guy who was working on the LGL, the Japanese broadcast, which, by the way, is a roundabout way of saying he's the only person we know who speaks English and looks a little bit like Monty in that old photo, and also knows about the fucking Detonation Focus Me, who became vaguely to sort of relevant at international tournaments.
Slightly relevant.
Beyond just the planes, even. That's the key part. Who knew that part would ever be true, beyond the planes? Not entirely, like I will say, it never actually even happened at Worlds, but they almost did. We could believe for like 2 days that they were going to do something. Now
we could believe for like 30 minutes against 100 Thieves.
Yeah, for a little while. Now that also did turn out. I will say, technically, that did actually turn out to have 2 of the top 3 teams in the tournament in the group. Yeah. So Obviously not 100 Thieves. Then after that, now Nymaera is one of those people who just like randomly appears on LEC, and then here's the final detail I'll say, and then every week just apologizes for his performance and says he'll do a better job or something. Apparently you're Korean or something secretly now. Like if we cheer for you, you'll show good games. What's it? I want to ask that question first of all. What is this new fucking trend where you're like, you're not a player, you know, mate? Why are you like apologizing for flipping the Baron or whatever? Like everyone's allowed to have an off day. What's this angle? You need to be confident on these shows.
Okay, so this is psychoanalyzing how I got to this point,
exactly.
effectively. So, because, you know, I've effectively been casting for 2 years pretty much on the dot. And most of that has been effectively be shit, review something, get better at it. And if I'm not doing that constantly, day in, day out, and you know, that's typically just the mindset I've got myself into. And part of it's also, you know, just kind of like playing the social game too, because a lot of people will jump on people being like particularly arrogant in my position, and I'm not quite ready enough to do that. We'll give it a couple of months, then we might flip the switch. We'll see what happens. But yeah, for now, it's kind of, you know, enjoying what I'm doing and being proud of what I'm achieving, because, you know, I am, like, as much as I am being humble about it, I'm fucking pretty happy with what I'm doing.
No doubt, yeah.
But also taking the chance to be like, okay, what am I going to do next time? How am I going to step that up? Because, you know, this is obviously not the ceiling I want to find myself at. I want to go beyond that. But yes, that is a relevant point to bring up. I've been thinking about it. I'll get back to you on it.
All I'll say is, look, like, if people don't know, even Monty, whose entire identity in League obviously was like, he's supposed to be the guy who's the know-it-all, and he knows better than you about the Koreans. Even Monty, believe it or not, had his years where when he was coming up from Overwatch, there was the transition period back. He wasn't always as confident in himself in the role. I will say, I found that almost like shook me a bit. It's like that fucking, it's like the shit Austin Powers way, he loses his mojo. Like, what the fuck? Just tell him that the Korean's going to win and say, LCS, you shit money. You know the script. Get on with it. What you do. But, you know, you have to get that sort of mojo built back up again. I get it. Fair enough.
It was hard, you know, operating a league while still being involved in trying to understand League of Legends after being away for a while. It's all right. We're back on the horse now. We're good.
And also, to be fair, one thing people never gave you credit for, Monty, is like I joke about the old episodes of Summon Insight were very like sort of like surface level about other regions. You could get away with that back then. Like back then, there were no LPL experts. So the joke is, you could watch like 3 LPL games and go, "Wow, this PDD guy seems good on Jackson." You were like now the biggest expert ever on the LPL. You know, in the modern day, you try throwing opinions out like that, and the motherfuckers who do 40 games a week will just tear you up.
Well, I mean, the thing about it is
LEC though, but like particularly with LEC, because it's been such a high-profile project for such a long time, I can't come in and say I know all of this shit would just happen, even as like a casual viewer. Like I'm very wary to not pretend to be something I'm not in terms of like the hyper LEC expert and stuff. Now, I'm on game knowledge and shit. Yeah, sure, I'm gonna come up and talk to you about Ahri when she's finally picked and then goes and loses as 9 Rogue versus 0-9 Astralis. But, you know, there are some areas which I'm going to stand my ground on. But when it comes to, like, the LEC narratives, which are such a big part of it, I need to give a little bit of ground just to, like, not, you know, taint the hallowed ground, which is the LEC and what they've kind of built up over a couple of years. That's the angle I've been going with anyway.
Well, I think that's smart just because one thing LEC has done very well is really cultivate the narratives, and you just have to have people who really know them inside and out in order to do justice to them. And I think they're among, if not the very best in the world in any esport at doing that right now.
They build players and teams as products, and it's really been successful for them. And it's really cool to see how they're doing that behind the scenes too, in terms of the conversations they have to build a show.
Yeah.
Right, let's do this. Like, obviously, since Nymaera has been appearing infrequently, but in a way consistently infrequently on the LEC broadcast, obviously we're going to talk mainly about LEC/European League of Legends. But we thought, because we were going to talk about this anyway on the first segment, so we asked if he'd watched. We wanted to talk a little bit though about LCK in the context that right now, obviously T1 is on some incredible win streak. They've had all these great performances. Even spoiler, this year you actually can say Faker looks really good. He's actually sort of got his shit back together again, and so it even ties in. We'll talk about T1 in general, but you alluded to it there, Nymaera. Right at the moment, an interesting discussion I've noticed a lot of the analysts are talking about is this: should Ahri essentially be A, a priority, or B, even picked at all at mid lane? And if people don't know, one of the reasons why is because, as you mentioned, the game that cost Rogue their own chance at a perfect season was obviously when they did, I think it was even a blind pick Ahri or something, wasn't it? Like they did a ridiculous
blind pick, basically. Hold up.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, I think like it's important to talk about the way in which like first off, Nymaera is much more of an Ahri expert than I am. He is the king of Ahri. He sleeps with an Ahri body pillow. I've seen Ahri in the background of his other house.
That's
not denying it. So it's
from
true.
the
away right now.
Yeah, the key thing is, it was obviously a key like pocket pick for fucking Aria from Detonation Forks. Me, even when it wasn't in the meta. I mean, spoiler, it might not be in the meta yet, depending on how this conversation goes.
Well,
Okay, I'm fairly sure Aria didn't play it up until just this split. Actually, he's played a load of Zoe and LeBlanc, but yeah, as much as I love to see him play it, it's not something he did that much. But yeah, a couple of players have started to play it a bit more.
So I think we have to set the groundwork because Ahri is increasingly being seen as a blind pick. We saw Faker blind pick it over in the LCK and do very well with it, which I know you enjoyed seeing, and we'll get into the reasons behind that. But I think what's important to talk about first is why Ahri is a blind pick, because many people are seeing her with the new kit for the first time in a while, and talk about some of the changes that happened. So first off, just to quickly go over them, her passive was changed so that you get more reliable healing now based off of CSing and champion damage. You disagree with reliable as opposed to the comeback on the Q?
So there was a thing that you used to do on the old passive where it was on spell hits, where you could get a really nice because you were trading with W level 1. You could get 3 Ws out at level 1, kill the first minion in the second wave, hit level 2, and then get like a really big heal off your first Q. Okay. So there were some things in early lane which was slightly better for old Ahri, but on the whole, and particularly in team fights with the other changes, it's much more reliable. Yeah.
So you do get some healing back off of the takedowns now, right? Off the passive as well. Yep. Champion takedowns, as well as every 9 minions you kill, right? You get a chunk of healing back. So it now comes off of last hitting on the wave. So the Q was obviously changed to increase all of her skills, basically increase damage because you lose the damage amp on the charm. And so the other thing that's very important is a lot of her skills were also decreased in terms of their mana cost, making spammability much better. She has better mobility. She has another half second of move speed, I believe, on her W.
Yeah, it's 2.5 seconds W now, yeah.
Yeah, but significantly cheaper mana cost. It went from what, like
it's
45
to 25. It's
yeah.
actually really big in laning phase.
Yeah, so it allows her to deal a lot more damage in the laning phase. She has more mobility, which makes her more elusive. She's pretty safe into most matchups, as well as having up to 8 dashes now potentially in the team fight if you get really lucky and get 5 takedowns. So she has a high level of mobility. Obviously that's unlikely, I would say, to happen, but you're probably going to get a couple extra dash charges. So
why is it everything I hear about Riot when they're making a champion?
Dashes,
it's like that fucking.
I saw that.
It's like the meme where the Matthew McConaughey guys like, we're going to pump those rookie numbers up. It's like, oh, only 5 dashes in it. Like, give me
only 3. Break, what about 8?
I was just hearing that, thinking of myself back in the day when I used to play AD carry. Like, fuck, what is this shit?
Yeah, you're going to get a lot of dashes basically. Plus, she synergizes very well with Everfrost to provide more CC. You're not reliant on hitting your charm anymore to actually do damage, which is huge. You're not running out of mana as frequently. So that's my spiel on the changes that were made to Ahri. Now I defer to you, Nymaera, because you're the far bigger expert on what we're seeing in the meta and how Ahri should be played versus how she is being played.
Put it this way, why does it lose every fucking game?
Oh, for God's sake.
Because it seemingly does. Except when Faker plays. I'll give you that one, yes.
Everyone is really uncoordinated. And also, so part of it actually comes around to this Everfrost thing, because actually I'm an Everfrost hater. I actually hate the item on Ahri. If you're like 90% of the teams out there, because like you're diving in, you're trying to get the first kill, and you have 0 damage because you built like cooldown boots, an Everfrost, and a Cosmic Drive. So the big thing about the changes to me, outside of like laning matchups, which gets obviously that's very individual matchup-y, is what used to be one-way trips because you'd use 2 or 3 ult charges and all of your burst onto one target. Now you get a heal and you get an extra dash out. So you can dive in, get a priority target, and get out. Now, because you synergize very well with stuff like Jarvan, Xin Zhao, Lee Sin, that can get you rolling early, so you can start snowballing, and also dive into the team fight and help you finish off the first target. And Hecarim is also not a bad combo with this too, which is another jungler that's coming in. You're likely to get in, get the first kill, get out with the extra charge, or snowball the fight with that. And why teams are failing with it comes down to 2 things. One is that, again, it's kind of a build thing where sometimes the Ahri is trying to be the main damage source and they're just not, because they haven't built damage. They haven't gone for something like Ludens, and you can often like get a Dark Seal as the first back item instead of going towards the Lost Chapter if you don't have the gold for it. You can start snowballing into Magi stacks. Not many teams do that, even though you're actually as we said, we're kind of
he's a good, great champion for that, right?
Yeah, you're one of the best champions of the game at actually getting kills and surviving with the stacks, given all of the changes. Actually, everything goes towards that. Even like your W move speed being more good as well. You're good at getting in and getting out. So partly it is.
You also have the free triumph rune basically now.
All of that. Yeah, exactly. All of that shit. And then the other thing is that teams are just not brave. They're just not willing to use Ahri's HP as a resource. The one person and the one team that is T1. Because I'm trying to think back to, I think it was the HLE series, maybe the game which they won on Ahri without. Like Faker was continually flashing in, continually dashing in, and kind of setting up the pick, even though they're into a naught list and they knew they're going to be like, oh, well, whatever, you're going to get hooked, you might end up dying for that. I'm trying to remember if that's the right game anyway. Anyway, it was one of those games where effectively you can use the Ahri to be just very, very aggressive, be very brave with your HP, dash in and set things up. Now, obviously Faker is going for the full setup build as well, with cooldown boots, with the Everfrost. You do go into Shadow Flame second, so you have some Magic Pen in there, which is obviously very nice, and you get the extra HP from it, from the item in general. But the only reason I like T1 doing this is because they always have something like an Aphelios Assault flying in over the top of it. They have Ona really nearby with a champion that can follow up too. And T1 has the right mindset as a team to kind of play around these picks. Obviously, a lot of vision game comes into it. A lot of it comes into positioning. But on the whole, it's just a whole mindset thing about actually not just sitting back and being, oh, I'm a safe blind pick, I'll just wave clear and stuff. It's actually, no, push up, look for the first pick, and roll through that. And it really frustrates me seeing so many teams just sit back and just being like, I'm farming safely, it'll be fine. Like, that just really annoys me about this pick.
So to be clear, in the Hanwha Life game, they were playing into Tahm Kench and Akali and Xin Zhao, so it's actually really safe to play Ahri into that overall?
I'm trying to remember which game it was. It might have actually been the game 2, which they lost against Nongshim, but he was such a good... he was playing really well into it. Yeah, it was actually one of the games they lost, but he was doing really well in that. But either way, the mindset is still there in terms of like going in as the first pick, kind of knowing that you're going to get shut down, but your team is going to be there behind you to kind of roll over the fight anyway, and you've already locked down the first pick, which I really appreciate from T1. And I think the coordination really shows in a lot of those fights. Yep.
What about then as let's talk about T1 as a team in that sense. So obviously at the moment they're on this like near unprecedented run. They haven't lost a game. They've even beaten obviously the main rivals in Gen G in the first round robin. We're in the second round robin now, if people don't know. These are all best of 3 series, it goes without saying. So this is the other thing as well. I think that's the most underplayed part of this run so far, is even when people hear Nymaera like 21-0, they go like, well, Fnatic went 18-0. Yeah, best of ones in the LEC, you fuck. What are you talking about? Like, there's like 2 teams could even maybe beat them back. Yeah, exactly. These are best of 3s, guys. So on the one hand, look, if you actually are the best team, in theory, your best of 3 also means you can lose a game and win the series. But winning all those best of 3 series, that's fucking really hard to do. If people don't watch the LPL, in the LPL, sometimes even the best teams just trip over and lose to like the third to last team.
Didn't LNG just go like undefeated and then lose 3 series off back to back?
Happens pretty much, yeah. So to me, this is some epic shit. So let's get into it then. What have you thought of this T1 team? Because obviously people don't know, it effectively is the T1 team you saw last year. It's just they actually removed the other parts of the roster and they've just committed to this team now.
Oh gosh,
so to be fair, I think that winning all those best of 3s is actually less impressive than winning all those best of 1s, because there's the opportunity to correct for mistakes, and it's not like Team 1 hasn't dropped a bunch of games. So I just because I don't know, it's how you take it. Like, certainly BO1s are more coin flippy, so you have to like get lucky a couple of times. Whereas like I think in most best of 3s, the better team is going to come out on top overall, right? It's more likely that happens. So what you consider more difficult, right? Is I would say up for grab.
The caveat is that if you've got 2 teams you're facing in a week and you have to prep for both of them, one of them's a stronger team, one of them's a weaker team. In the LCK, the level of teams is going to be that even the weaker teams, if you're not prepping for them, can really trip you up. And
you don't have back-to-back days of games, though. That's the thing.
Okay, not back-to-back, but yeah, I mean, in terms of like just in terms of prepping for your different teams and best of 3s, I think that there are the level of teams in the LCK. Typically, you're more likely to get tripped up by a lower tier team that has really hard prep for you. Than in say like, I don't know, 2015 LEC, EU LCS or whatever. It was a very different landscape back then. I mean, the average level of the LCK mechanically is very high comparative to back then. So yeah, I definitely agree with the best 1 point in terms. I mean, look at the upsets in Worlds and stuff like that, right? One of the big arguments against best of 1 double round robin group stage in Worlds is actually you're not actually getting the correct results because the better teams are losing to random games. Now that can happen in best of 1 formats too, but in regular seasons. But in terms of the best of 3 side of things, I still think it is very impressive that T1 have managed to keep up this streak, even although there is the caveat of the COVID stuff.
Yeah, the Gen G match wasn't really what we wanted to see, right?
Yeah.
Because there were players out in that match. So it's kind of like a fraudulent perfect run, but also
Asterisk.
T1 are super good. So
there's an asterisk, sadly. As much as this is a great run, can it be like greatest of all time run? There's always going to be an asterisk next to that, which is really sad because I feel like this is a team which could have done that, even with all of those things counted in.
There's still a chance if you go undefeated on the whole season. Maybe that makes up for it.
Oh, that'd be crazy. Yeah, maybe go undefeated on MSI.
Guess what? It's a perfect time to talk about this because on Thursday we get the T1 Gen G rematch. So it's a great time to have this discussion.
What do you think of them as a team anyway in general?
As a team, I think they are so much more stable as a team. I mean, particularly going through their Worlds run with Kana. Kana was, I think we saw like the upper ceiling of his play when he was playing with a lead. And sometimes, I mean, I think there was a Canon game versus Down 1 where he was super far ahead and he just couldn't do anything with it. He just struggled to find the angles. I think that Zeus has been really solid. He plays everything that the team needs him to. He's very responsible with his leads. And then obviously the meta for bot lane has been so incredible for this team because Gimme UC on the Jinx and the Aphelios is just absurdly good.
Yep. And
the fact there's actually quite a lot of open support picks too between Enchanters and Engage. I can't think of a better player to give support random options to than Carrier. So there's a lot of things working out for this team. I'd be interested to see what happens to them when Jinx Aphelios inevitably falls out of meta because I don't see a way that meta lasts the whole season. That it's going to get nuked at some point. But as the meta stands right now, they are very on the same page. They understand like the fights that they want to take, and that's something which a lot of teams have struggled with worldwide in terms of we should just fight now without really understanding why. I think T1 typically have done a bit better on that, and they've shown that clutch factor through that understanding, which is really separate them from being like a good team to like a really, really great team.
Do you think, I want to get the thoughts of both of you, so maybe Monty, you can do this first. What do you think about the fact that, like, one of the first things I actually thought when they announced those teleport changes is, like, this is an example of a team where it's like, the bot lane of fucking T1 on paper is primed to take advantage of that you can't just teleport early on with all these fucking god tier mid laners with a million dashes. You can't just go to the bot lane and gang bang the guy anymore. Now you actually have to have some real 2v2 lanes. Like, obviously they on paper have arguably one of the best spot lanes in the whole world.
Yeah, and they're playing through it. I think the way T1 has a very specific way of playing right now, which is extremely effective in this meta. So let's contrast this. If you guys haven't been watching T1 compared to what we saw T1 doing at Worlds, so what was happening at Worlds, and I think there are several reasons probably why they're doing this. The meta is one of those reasons, but they also had a bunch of rookie players last year, right? Like they were dealing with a bunch of new players. They were kind of acclimating them over time. You have to remember they went through a massive coaching change. They ran for half of last year. They ran that incredibly stupid, like 10-player roster. They fired the coaches. By the way, Faker is still the coach of this team, in case anybody was curious about that. It's not Pult. I'll tell you that. It ain't Pult, guys. So what happened was they fired the coaches. Faker basically became a player coach. He is still, as I understand it from talking to people in Korea, that he is basically still the coach of that team. And so, you know, he has additional responsibilities. Now, how did this manifest? It manifested in him playing like counter matchups, very low economy style that we saw at Worlds. We had a conversation. Is Faker the worst mid laner on a Korean team? Answer was probably yes, especially when it came to mechanics. But what he was doing was enabling the side lanes, especially the bot lane, super well. He would play Lissandra into LeBlanc, and then he would just walk all over the map and go kill people in the bot lane as LeBlanc, or as Lissandra rather. And he was playing really well. So there wasn't an issue. It was just he was playing a different kind of style. So let's fast forward to now. Faker looks much more in shape mechanically. His team is playing around him very well, and he is being left on his own more. So there's a big difference. Let's actually pull up the world stats. And you know, obviously stats in League of Legends can be questionable. Like I don't want to do this. Yeah, I don't want to do this spiel every time, but they also can be very useful for certain things. But if we look, and especially with regions that have higher sample sizes, like LCK and LPL, one of the things that's going on right now with T1 overall is that Faker actually does not have a very high kill participation, which is different than what was happening at Worlds, right? As far as kill participation goes, he's actually, second second lowest compared to BDD, actually, within the league, at only 61% of KP currently within LCK this split. Now, who has a much higher kill participation, interestingly, is Gumayusi. And so if you watch
team fights around Gumayusi.
Yeah. And also they rotate around him. They'll get him out of the bot lane early. They'll move him up to Herald. We talked about this trend in Korea before Worlds with an emphasis on first Herald in these rotations. They've been playing more with their jungler owner around the bottom lane. And they've been basically, force feeding Gumayusi a ton of resources. And Faker has been playing much more solo in the side lanes, especially split pushing into the mid and late game. And this is just the way that they want to do things. Like, they will put a lot of pressure on the top lane by rotating Keria and Gumayusi up top early to get Herald charges in. And Faker's just kind of doing his own thing on the map. Now, the thing where I think T1 is really succeeding is that they are they're not actually great at playing the lane. Sometimes they make really kind of shitty mistakes in the laning phase. But the thing is that when they make a mistake, they will cross map very effectively in order to pick up. They will force a mistake on the other side of the map from their team. And the other thing they do very well is they set up on objectives early, and they set up well, and they know their win conditions with their comp around the objective. Now, part of this is, I think, as Nymaera alluded to, they do not have a wide variety of compositions that they use. And that Gumayusi has been playing, a lot of Aphelios, a lot of Jinx, a lot of...
We're not going to see the Jin Ziggs Leona stuff out of them. Not right now.
Not right now. And it's good because they want to create pressure bot lane. They want to push the wave. They want to rotate for objectives early. This is what they do. This is how they play the game. It's probably the best way to play the game right now. Overall. And so they're using the champs that are strong. But if you look at what Gumayusi has played this season, 22 out of his 29 games have been on Aphelios, Jinx, or Caitlyn. And in his career, encompassing last year as well, Aphelios and Jinx Aphelios, he's played 29 professional games. The next one is Jinx with 12. So, I mean, this is an enormous percentage of his.
I will say, if people don't know, because this might be confusing if you didn't follow any of the Asian regions, last year, they still actually would sometimes in the LPL, etc., force Jinx, for example, and they would play it, even though in the West, it was largely just ignored completely by almost everyone. It was still a big pick, though, in the Asian regions. So essentially, the meta's hitting this guy right in his face right now. Yeah, and he was really good anyway.
Yeah. Now we know that he is good at certain champs that are not meta. Like, he's a great Samira player, like really fucking good.
Yeah.
And we've seen like glimpses of this in professional play, but for the most part, he's been kind of riding this meta, and he's also had an enormous amount of support from his team in order to ride this meta, which is that, in international competitions, Faker was babysitting him basically and sacrificing a huge amount of his own resources in order to do that. And they've now dropped themselves into a meta, whereas Thorin says the TP changes have made it so he can play a lot of these like hyper carry bots or very aggressive lane pushing bots. Then he can just free himself up on the map. And as opposed to Faker coming to him, he just walks around the map and takes objectives, sets up on the objectives early. And T1 is real good at playing these objective fights. So I think like T1 is a great team right now. I don't think they're without their flaws. And I do question how meta independent they are going to be because of how it's not necessarily one-dimensional because they understand how the pieces of their composition work in each like unique compositional case versus their opponents. So you can tell that they're not just like robotically, running the same kind of team fights, because the way they team fight with similar champions changes depending on their synergies and their opponents' champions, which is great to see. But at the same time, you're looking at Faker, who's been playing like very meta, like Victor, Corki, LeBlanc. It's not terribly exciting. Is what I will say.
What they're doing really well for Faker, because if you think about kind of the evolution of Faker as a player, we had him like popping off in season 3, trying to be the mechanical hyper carry still in season 4, like making all the crazy assassin plays, but then obviously the team falling apart around him. Then you hit season 5 through 8, where it's just all teleport, all like into big team fights with the rise of stuff like your Orianna and your Syndra, Azir kind of stuff coming back for so many seasons. this feels to me like the first time where one, he has like a really competent shot caller on his team that's doing their job really well in Carrier.
Yep.
And also with the TP changes, he can play something which has a bit more room to kind of do its own stunts rather than just kind of be the cheerleader for the rest of the team. Talking about the objective setup, I think one of the really important things which T1 do is give like a good 20 to 30 second window or more to just allow Faker to do something. Just hands off, Faker, do something with LeBlanc or Ahri. And he's been doing really well with that window of time to find the necessary pick to then start trying to initiate the fight on their terms. And that's one of the big pickups I've had about this team.
And clearly, I totally agree with you, Nymaera. And one of the things that's been so interesting to me to watch about this team is that they will blow major cooldowns to chunk people, like you're saying, 20 or 30 seconds. Like, Korea will do it as well on Lux. Like, he will just go ahead and use Lux Laser to send somebody to half HP if he can land the bind first and then proc the passive, because he knows that then they're going to get priority on the objective and that they're going to, force people into a very uncomfortable situation. And Faker does the exact same thing. So they're really good at getting these incremental advantages that then snowball into major objectives. And the other thing that they're really honestly amazing at doing is their communication must be so fucking good, because I watched some of these fights. I watched some of these fights around objectives, and it's like, the way that they're communicating their positions and like Gnar Rage Bar fucking perfectly, where they don't start the objective until like right before the Gnar Rage Bar starts. Gnar's perfectly in position to zone them out with the threat of the Gnar ultimate, and then the objective is just done by the time that the Mega Gnar ends. It's like, it's flawless. Like, it's actually really beautiful to watch if you're looking for these placements. And their communication is so fucking good right now around who has their abilities up, how they can zone effectively given the tools that they have, who's getting the poke damage down, who can even die, and it doesn't matter as long as they kind of just like strategically int. So it's really impressive to watch.
By the way, one, as a quick aside, did his name have to be Carrier? Because it's so close to Korea that you're going to have that problem. I'll tell you a quick aside. I once did an interview like that back actually when I worked, I think it was on LCK GM'ing. I once did an interview with this Korean StarCraft player, and it was through a translator. And I only realised 10 minutes into the interview, this fucking translator guy kept thinking I'm saying the name of the country Korea, and I've been saying Korea, like as in your Korea. And I kept wondering, why am I getting these answers back? Like, I was asking him stuff like, so what do you actually think about where you're at in your career right now? And he was just answering stuff like, that's where I'm from, where else would I want to be? And I was thinking, these are fucking really weird philosophical answers, and obviously it just ruined it. So
was this the world's first version of like GeoGuessr or something like that? Like,
it wasn't great, was it? So all I'm going to say is we're going to run into that problem with the Carrier one. I can already fucking see. And then the other angle is this, though. I also think the fact that I'm actually very impressed, especially if, as Monty says, essentially they just let Faker coach the team now. Well, this is a type of SKT we've never seen before. Like, even when they essentially did play through Piglet when they had him, it was obviously was an AD carry. They still were never like a bot-centric team. Like, that team, he just happened to be one of the people who got carried champions. Like, if you remember, that was the team, if anything, they were fucking kings of the pick comp, weren't they? Like, the idea that they would essentially play like Uzi I style around an ADC in T1 is such a culture clash to the history of the org and how it's had. Remember, this was a team that played through mid and top the entire history of the org, pretty much. So I think it's really interesting. And also, I think it's really cool personally, because there's never been a Korean ADC who was like this. Every other Korean ADC, their dream is to be deft, ruler, and it's like, in theory, you're typically trying to be the team fight ADC. That's all you try. You're not trying to be like an Uzi I forgiven and smash the lane every time. What's cool to me is they've got a player who it's totally appropriate to play that way around him. Like, he actually has that sort of mindset for the game. So I'm just so fascinated by the fact they've had to sort of like completely pivot what they're doing as an org, but it's working. Like, this is what you should do when you have this personnel.
I think there's still a level of danger to it. Like, I think Gumayushi still positions too aggressively at times. Like, we're talking at a very high level of play, but like, this last week he was getting like flash rise rooted, and like you just can't have that happen if you're Jinx. Like, that's, you have to know that the rise has flash and like not walk there. And at a very high level of League of Legends play, those mistakes will cost T1. And I think, people will look at T1 right now and they'll say, wow, this team is on a historic win streak, despite caveats that we've brought up and asterisks regarding some of their most powerful opponents not being able to run their full rosters yet. But also the way that they play, sometimes they make mistakes in the laning phase, which cause them to have to do other things on the map, or sometimes they make positional mistakes in team fights. Sometimes they can get away with it because one thing that they are good at is knowing, like, somebody will play aggressively if they see the jungler. Like, Zeus will all in. But the thing about that is you have to be able to sometimes mechanically outplay people. And, like, are you going to do that against top Chinese teams? I'm not sure that, trying to make up for mistakes that you've made via mechanical outplay is necessarily a
it's
great
felt like they've
plan.
had to clutch things a lot.
Yeah.
And it's kind of part of that magic of, say, like summer 2015 SKT when they started pulling that off, and that was a great part of their roster. Where essentially, no matter how far they get behind, they've always got the ability to play themselves out of a pit. Some of the teams they're doing it against locally probably don't want to be falling behind against some of the teams which they have done, but the fact that they have that clutch factor is still good to see that they don't fall apart when they do have deficits against them. And admittedly, there are a lot of mechanics in the game to allow you to come back from big deficits right now. I mean, just have to look at like the G2 Misfits game where you give every shutdown over to an Akali and everything with that, and you're just like, oh well, okay, game's over then. You've given everything to a champion that can't die at this point because they've got a Yuumi on them. But it's good to know that even with all the mechanics into it, T1 do have like this extra gear to shift into, because inevitably at international competitions there are going to be teams that smash you early at some point, just really sucker punch you, and you have to play from that kind of deficit.
Yeah, I don't hear any slander like that. Like, if you actually essentially misposition but use mechanics to get out of trouble, you could win 8 LCS titles, go to an MSI final, probably wouldn't do great at Worlds. Spoiler, that was Double's whole career. So, just Double's whole career. And guess what? Yes, when he had to face the Asian AD carries every year, he was like, this is actually a lot harder. I wish I'd sort of been playing properly before now. Probably not the time to learn how to, position correctly.
These guys got hands.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I just think it's interesting too, because it shows a shift in the Korean mentality, at the very least, that if something happens somewhere and somebody realizes that they can play aggressive, they will skill check. That is new, frankly, to Korea over the last few years.
Yeah.
And it's a good sign that is happening, and it's a good sign that players like Zeus are willing to just be like, well, I see everybody bot lane, time to all in this motherfucker up here in top. My question is, like, should that be necessary? Because it is predicated. People will focus on the cool 1v1 that just happened in top and ignore the fact that 1v1 didn't really have to happen if bot didn't randomly die. So this is not a team without its flaws. I will say that. Now, if they can get through the laning phase, they become extremely difficult to beat because their macro is so fucking good. So
their lane allocation has been like really immaculate. Actually.
Lane assignments are great. Early rotations are great. Look at the way they snuck that Baron against Hanwha Life by popping in from the back of the pit on red side with the Xin Zhao and the Jinx in the late game, where they just knew where all of the vision was and just completely took it away. Like, these are kind of calls that you can only do with very specific compositions that are capable of making these kind of plays. And they're making them. So their creativity in their macro is also very good. So, you head into a mid-game state even or behind on T1, you're probably not going to win that game. But I just am concerned about, God Chinese laners like rocking up and putting them in a scenario where they can't do well. And also, it has to be said, in this meta, a lot of T1's compositions are based off of poke, or based off of being able to deal damage on
range advantage is a huge thing in the meta.
Exactly.
Anyway, it's just
true.
what side of it you're playing from, because typically Korean teams, if they have a range advantage, and this was talking to, I think it was around MSI when a lot of the players, obviously like all the Korean players were like over here scrimming, and a lot of the European teams are saying you just can't give a range advantage to the Korean teams, they're too good at playing it out. Now, I don't think that was true with all of the teams, but you look at even coming through the Worlds in the semi-final between Damwon SKT, and you had like the Jin Maokai, Jin Zillion stuff cropping up, and just like, teams know how to play around the Jin at this point. Like, if you give them it, they know how to rotate to impact mid, they know how to get a lead, and then suddenly you don't have the ability to just snap all into them and stop them using that range advantage. Now, when you come into this one where it's not Jin on the other side, it's a Jinx or an Aphelios, which is going to, crap on your team fights even harder at that point, things get very difficult to problem solve. Now, when you have a player like Gumayusi, who is very good at Aphelios, You don't have to worry about the range discrepancy between something like a Jinx and a Fellows, which tends to be the trade-off. He's like, oh, okay, in mid-game, we're going to have better team fights with the Fellows when he's got Gale Force and the ability to really just pump out damage before Jinx kind of comes online, at even more so at 3-4 items. But even with that, I do worry what happens, as you were saying, though, in terms of what happens when T1 have to shift away from that. Maybe it comes back to, I don't know, more Silas games coming into mid lane and less Victor, less Corki, and the ability to kind of like, do you have to brawl it out and not play the patient fights and look for that big play with the range?
Well, it's also that T1 as a whole has not been playing engage-heavy compositions. What they've been doing is they've been playing compositions that do well once they have priority over an objective, where if you try and play into them, you get destroyed. Like, you don't want to be playing into like a fucking Gnar, Jace, Aphelios, Corki. Like, here are the top 3 most played champs for every member of T1. Zeus, Jace, Gnar, Gragas. Okay, you can say Gragas is more of an engage-heavy champion. That's fine. The other ones mostly rely on already having control over an objective and people playing into you. Owner, Xin Zhao, Lee Sin, Viego. Faker, Victor, Corki, LeBlanc. Gumayushi, Aphelios, Jinx, Caitlyn, and Keria is playing Thresh, Karma, and Tahm Kench. These are, for the most part, if you were to take the top 3 most played champions of all of these players and craft compositions out of them, almost all of them are poke compositions that kite and peel effectively. And that if you can muscle your way in front of a dragon or a baron and you force the other team to play into you, they're great. If you have to try and get onto an objective, it becomes much more challenging.
What's really interesting about that, though, is like there are other teams worldwide which are trying that, and they're not doing nearly as well with it. The big one for me is someone like Mad Lions in Europe, who have tried to play zero engage, Viego compositions were like, sweet, we're going to get soul point, and you're going to have to contest us at some point. But they just make like 1 or 2 mistakes. And that's all it takes with these kind of comps to let go of the lead, and then suddenly you don't actually have the map position or the raw fighting potential to muscle your way into a certain area of the map and force the enemy to come into you. So I think it does say something about how T1 are playing to get those leads and playing to set up at objectives like you called out before. But the question is, at a certain point, is there going to be some flaws in their style which are exposed and where they make 1 or 2 mistakes and they can't play out these compositions?
Yeah, that's my question. So I think that obviously it's really exciting. The run they're on, they're extremely good at playing these compositions. So I'm not saying like it's going to be easy to stop them from doing this, especially because these compositions, when played well, are the apex of the meta right now. Like, it's hard to see a team that is using these tools in a better macro sense than T1 is. And it's not flawless in the laning phase, but they are still doing it super, super well. And they're creative, they're tricky. Yeah, they're a really good team, but I don't see it as totally without flaw. That's my point.
Should we swap to LEC then?
Sure.
Should we talk a bit about that? Right, here's the thing.
Talk about Misfits G2.
Before we get into all that jazz, let's start with the top team in the LEC with Rogue. So if people don't know, Rogue, by winning this last game that they won and winning 12 games this split, obviously still 3 games to be played yet. We don't know what the final result will be. I looked this up. That means they have now, I just want to give props for a second, because since everyone, at the moment, the Rogue narrative is dominated by playoffs, and it's always like, they're just chokers, they can't adapt. Like, there's even though no one actually actively calls out the Rogue coaching staff because they're not very front-facing, the implication, which no one ever addresses, if you really think the team doesn't properly like play in the playoffs and they discover it, I don't know why no one's ever asked, like, is just coaching staff doing their job? So where the coaching staff inarguably is doing their job is, these regular seasons are fucking incredible. This is now the 4th split in a row where they have won 12 or more games, right? You have to understand, guys, there's only Larson remaining. They've changed all the other fucking players over those 4 splits. And think about it, they did it playing 3 totally distinct playing styles. Like, this coaching staff, listen, there's plenty of things you can dispute and say they've done a bad job, but these areas, like, mate, no joke, they might be the best regular season coaching staff ever. It's a bit like there's a similar scenario happened in LCS. I always used to say, while I haven't been mega critical of Reapard when he was in playoffs and when he was in like game 5 draft, mate, in the regular season, that guy's unreal. You're pretty much guaranteed to have an elite placing every split. You're nearly always going to win most of your games. Like, again, they've done this in the LEC because even listen, it's a different skill set. Coaching the playoffs in a series of best of 5 is obviously different from coaching 2 best of 1s each week. But the point is, it's a skill. By the way, it's the same in all other sports. Again, the NFL to win regular season is really hard as well, but it's a different skill. So I just want to give props to the staff because, again, they might yet win 13, 14 games. Like, this is unbelievable, this run this coaching staff's been in the last couple of years.
Let's make it even more impressive by saying they lost their 2 best players and the league MVP, and they still are at an 80% win rate right now.
Here's the detail. I'll give you the one last caveat, which is this. I looked this up. Look, they've only had 18 game splits since season 5 onwards, but none of the other orgs have done it, Monty, ever. Fnatic hasn't done it. No one's done 4 splits in a row like this. Everyone has one split where you go 10 wins, 11 wins. Now, I will say the caveat is this. And this is the downside, which makes it not as sexy as that initially sounded. Because that initially sounds like, holy shit, you mean even G2 and Fnatic haven't done it? Yeah, but spoiler, that's because since they kept winning each of the splits, they were like, actually, because we're now like actually champions, we're going to sort of phone it in for the first half of this split, then just get it together on the last week and then beat you in the playoffs. So I will say, the fact that Rogue never wins probably also does help. Because then the second they come back in the next split, it's like, got to prove ourselves again. But I get these wins. Like, they do have more reason to care. But like I said, it's really hard. Anytime you set history, like with the T1 record, as much as you can add caveats, like at the end of the day, you did stuff other people never did. That's always going to be hard.
They're relevant. They're relevant somehow. I mean, actually, one of their coaching staff did an interview on the LEC. I think it was Seal. I think it's Seal. Like their so you coach.
Not a great sign. You don't even know the name, and you were on the broadcast.
Oh, no,
okay,
so the reason is because like I remember their name and it had like 3 or 4 E's in it, and I'm like,
okay.
Not sure how this is pronounced.
CL. I don't know. He's Australian. I'm looking him up. He's Australian of Korean descent.
All right.
Gotcha. Yeah, they did an interview. I can't remember too much from it, but they were talking about the process going through the whole split in terms of like you got to start very early on with new teams and all the rest of it. And like there wasn't like a huge amount of substance to it, but they came on and they sounded confident. And then interesting to see how that kind of translates from if you got this process starting at the beginning of the split and then something majorly changes like a patch change, how that works going into playoffs. Because the big problem with Rogue has always been they do one thing really, really well, doesn't last throughout a best of 5, and I think that there are ways to try change the meta already in drafts, which some teams are not going towards as heavily. Say, what happens when you ban both Jinx and Aphelios? What happens at that point? What are you going to do with that? You change the map completely. Obviously you can't really do the same to someone like Malrang because he plays everything right now apparently, and he'll play it exactly the same way. But yeah, interested to see how Rogue kind of diversify their styles they can last in a best of 5.
By the way, I can't believe there's actually a guy in LEC who has the name Seal. Like, I know everyone in League's just too fucking... You're all actually way better than I am, but I would already have made some sort of joke about beating Seal Pops to death or some clubbing, and I'm like, I don't give a fuck. I'd have a million angles. I've got a unique club. You should... there's a million to... Oh, the Seals Pops coming...
You wouldn't go the kiss from a rose angle?
No, because listen, that's just making light of a guy's actual real injury. But in many ways, they have a scar that's lasted them a lifetime as well, Monty. The playoffs, we call it the playoffs, mate. No, but whatever. Anyway, so there's a load of angles you can go with on that one. No, but here's the thing I would say though: it's like if we're going to spin it the other way, one thing I would have to say about this Rogue team is this, right? One of the reasons people didn't believe in them, Nymaera, wasn't just the idea of when they get to the playoffs, they won't win. I get the real sense, for all the experts I've talked to, it's Malrang specifically, dude. Everyone's vibe was like the fucking Jesse from Breaking Bad. So he can't keep getting away with it, surely. You look at his style, and it's telegraphed what he's going to do. Because spoiler, he's never met a gank he didn't like. B, he's not trying to get any resource so far in the jungle. He's just ganking 24/7. And then C, in theory, when you know someone's game plan, it should, in theory, make it easier to shut it down. Spoiler, everyone must know what he's doing, but they can't. Dude, they can't shut him down.
Look, I disagree with Nuke Duck's take last week that everybody knows where he is at all times, because I watched some of his games and he will literally walk across the entire map to go take your Krugs. He will literally just walk across. You will walk corner to corner to go take enemy Krugs, and then he appears under a turret. I'm like, there's no way. That is insane. Why the fuck would anyone ever do that? He
sacrifices efficiency for unpredictability.
Yes.
And I mean, we obviously saw how that falls apart when they lost against Fnatic. That was a big one for me because actually, this really came in quite similar to how we were describing some of the T1 stuff in terms of you see the jungle, you fight, and you just keep going. Now, Fnatic did that to such a big degree versus Rogue when it's just well, Jin Zhao is far too far forward. Sweet, we can punish that. And Malrang has although he has been rewarded for a lot of his aggressive unpredictability, has started to be pulled up just a little bit against the top teams. Now, I'm trying to remember actually who they've got as their last run of teams, but yeah, I mean,
well, let me tell you, it's SK, BDS, and G2, so not looking particularly challenging.
Yeah, okay, so
we're getting that 13 wins. I'm just going to say it now. So.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, that is what it is. I mean, I do think that, I mean, we saw a lot of symptoms of this in Astralis game 2, and again, that was the very sad loss where they played very similar compositions where they had to pick jungle mids, and then they just overextended first. They got hit by a Vexel in the jungle. They died horribly. Once you fall behind in compositions like that, very, very hard to come back. And if you look at the Fnatic loss 2 against something like the Twisted Fate, it doesn't matter if it's been nerfed or not. Having that gold card pick to lock onto something else is really, really difficult to kind of worm your way out of. So I think Rogue is starting to fall prey to the teams which are not content to sit back early. This is also why picks like Hecarim are really succeeding in the LEC right now, because they can't fight at like level 1 to 3 or whatever. Hell, you don't even level up your E until level 4. Like, you're not even going to be able to charge into a lane. So on your first clear, second clear, you are very, very vulnerable. And if you play a good Lee Sin, you play a good Jin Zhao, it's going to be very difficult to fight back. And I think that ties in quite a lot to the LEC's kind of mentality right now, where no one's really that explosive early outside of Fnatic, and I do think that's why Fnatic have a leg up on the meta. Sometimes G2 will do something similar too, but as we saw, they don't always close so cleanly. But on the whole, I think that Rogue might start losing some of that dominance once teams start finding an extra gear to go up into in the early game, if they're feeling brave enough to do that.
Or they actually start more aggressively warding in the early and mid game so that they can probably track or just play TF and just press R. That's fine too.
I have like an abstract.
You'll see immediately. Don't worry about it.
I have an abstract tangent though as to why I actually think it's not as simple as fans think of. Like, you can't just take one VOD of like Malrang and go, I'm going to stop him this way. Here's why: because as much as in League, especially League's probably the game where this is the number one way of seeing the game. Everyone thinks of practice as being tailored because the pro team knows the two teams they're playing this week in LEC. They literally practice like, right, we're going to practice for this team, this team, and so what they do is they essentially give you the notion you're prepping a game plan, right? But I actually think if you look specifically at most team games, and League definitely falls in this, what you're really doing is all your practice is making you what you are as a team, and that is your core identity. And you can have the odd like one-off draft for this team or one-off a game plan, but ultimately, whatever your tendencies as a team and players, you will always, for good or for ill, go back to those. And so I remember there was a great quote I once heard that was something along the lines, I can't remember the exact phrasing, but the gist of it was like, you don't always like rise to the level of like, the moment or your skills. You sometimes fall to the level of your preparation. And so to me, I personally, it's the reason why when I hear teams saying like, it screams with shit, but in the game we're going to be good, it's like, I don't know, mate, because in my opinion, the way you practice should be how you play.
The error bars are really high at that point.
Sure. So one thing I'd say is this: in my opinion, the fact that no one else is playing like Malrang is why he gets away with it. It's because essentially every other team in the league trains you not to be able to beat Malrang. We actually have, I won't do a whole sidebar, but we actually have a player in CSGO that is very like this. Monty will know this. The reason I've picked against the team Virtus Pro that's from the CIS region so many times is because as an analyst, when I only watch their games, they have a player called Jame, where like if I was a coach and my only task as a coach was to make my team able to shut this guy down, I'm not joking, I would wreck this guy in a way no pro team is right now. But as I alluded to, they're not prepping in that way, especially in Counter-Strike, where you don't know who you're going to play tomorrow, right? In what you do instead is, because he plays the most unique style of sniper play, basically, he's basically very defensive, he never takes any shots pretty much, right? It means that everyone else is used to like the aggressive sniper, the one who takes this angle, and so everyone else is almost like trained that even in the game, if you could pause it and go, remember though, you are playing against Jim though, it's not a normal sniper, you go, oh fuck, yeah, you're right, I'll play this stuff. Yeah. Instead, it's like everyone else falls into the same trap over and over and over again because every other player who plays his role trains you that that's how you should play. So I think some of that's at play here. Because as I say, everyone's watched all the games. Like, dude, they're the number one team. They were undefeated. Every team for sure has like a big board, a whiteboard. One of the points on it is Malrang. It's like what we're going to do to him early game. It's just no one can bloody do it. No one can make it happen in the server.
Part of it is also Trimby really enabling with Enchanter picks too. But yeah, go on.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true, especially it's hard to have specific game plans for teams when you are playing back-to-back days, which every team in LCS and LEC does in a given week. You have to focus on your own game first, to your point, Thorin, which is, I think, absolutely true. Now, you can have certain drafts, and the coaches are obviously thinking about drafts that they can do, but when it comes to like unique warding patterns or expectations around pathing, level ones, it becomes a lot more difficult to do that. Now, I do think Rogue will suffer in best of fives, not because they always suffer in best of fives, which they kind of do, but because I think once you actually have a week to look at them and be like, okay, we have the 5-game plan of how, we've got 5 different things we're going to do to try and stop Malrang, and we've got all these contingencies, it's going to be a lot harder for him to pull off his bullshit. Also, on your point of VP, I think what's even funnier is that now Sanji doesn't play with them anymore, but to contextualize for people who don't know, he was basically just like a pack mule for James that was just carrying all of James' equipment. So it was even more stupid to play against them in the past, because you literally had just another player whose entire purpose was basically you had a player with a unique style, and then another player whose purpose was to feed this player. So
yeah, exactly.
See, the beautiful thing about CS to me is that I watch a lot of CS. I watch it as a complete pleb, and I want it to stay that way because I miss viewing something with like absolutely no information, just buying into the esport. So CS is it is the best esport, just on like a pure fundamental level. But yeah, so when I hear stuff like this, I'm like,
Nymaera, imagine
nice.
creating an esport. This is that anyone can watch because they understand what real world guns do. Intuitive, that has perfect pacing, that has easily identifiable outplays with no barrier. I don't have to know 160 champions to watch Counter-Strike. I don't even have to play video games to watch Counter-Strike. Imagine if we just made games like that instead of...
No. Listen, Monty, we're on a Riot broadcast related game. So here's the joke. Imagine seeing all of that, Monty, and going, wow, almost the perfect esport. Right, take it, make it have loads of unique champions, ruin that whole thing, Monty said. Make it so that you can't intuitively know because these are imaginary guns in a fictional universe. Make it
all
really...
the guns look the same.
Even though...
Unless they have skins.
Even though the premise of Counter-Strike is, spoiler, aside from weird sponsor things that haven't caught up, no actual fan is put off by the violence and the real-world terrorist. No, take that theme, make it like kids' things, even though it's a shooter, and about God. Like the joke is, it's like a Riot focus group sat down and got everything wrong in Valorant, basically, if people don't know. Like, the joke is they missed every point Monty was making that was good, and at the end went... As rounds like Counter-Strike.
They do have really intriguing drama, though. Like, in terms of the scene, the drama is great.
Sure.
You know why that is because they got all the players who were good at drama but bad at Counter-Strike. So they got all those guys. They got all of them.
There you go.
It's okay.
Right,
they can have their...
Since you guys mentioned earlier that you want to specifically talk about the should be notorious fucking G2 Misfits game, right? Which side do you want to do it on, though, Monty? Which side are we attacking first? Is it the fact that, like, look, Misfits aren't supposed to win half these games, but they do have probably the MVP of the league in Viego, and G2 are supposed to, I think they're supposed to be slightly better than they are, but they sort of are up and down week to week. So which side are we attacking this from?
Let's start before the game even begins, where this draft was allowed to happen.
Yes. Yeah. That's one.
Everyone used to talk so much shit on Grabs for his drafts. Like, tell you what, I'd have him back after seeing some of the BDS ones, mate. He knows what he's doing. So what do you think, guys? What was the most egregious aspect of this draft?
First off, this, let's be very clear. This comeback is not possible without Zeri Yuumi. Mostly Yuumi, but also Zeri was, helping a lot.
I'd call out the Akali Yuumi too, but yeah, effectively
the point is that the Yuumi was enabling Akali and Zeri in very shitty ways. And there's a reason why, we don't see a lot of Zeri let through these drafts. So I think that it was a cocky draft, and I think that without this composition, we don't see Misfits coming back. Like, they have these like mega late game scaling, high mobility champions that can create picks, which were very important in their comeback. Yes.
Really
so let's start with draft. So that was kind of bad, but you can make the argument, which G2 obviously thought they could do. So for all the people who are like, well, why did they allow them to do that? Come on, let's not fault G2's extremely good early game that happened where they completely shit on Zlatan in the jungle. Made him totally useless for like the first 30 minutes of the game, executed a really good early game plan. So that was fantastic from G2. So it's okay to let these drafts through, or these kind of picks through, if you have a good early game plan and your team is playing around, which they did.
Needed to do that.
Yeah, they had like a 14,000 gold lead at 20 minutes into the game. So clearly the draft wasn't the problem when it came to G2. Their execution on that draft was really good. You just can't let it go to this insane late game state. And not only that, but G2 had to commit so many errors to even arrive at this loss that the takeaway for fans, yes, the draft enabled the win in the end, but that is not why Misfits won.
Like, yeah, so there are so many ways to go about this, because I mean, so yeah, this is the largest comeback at 15 deficit the EU has like ever seen. So this was crazy at that point. Yeah, I mean, I think technically there was a larger gold lead that was come back from, but that was like 20, 30 minutes, something like that. So in terms of, like,
literally, as far as I know, I believe the biggest one ever was obviously the famous Frog and Anivia one against Moscow Fiber.
Yes.
But here's the difference to add to that. That was when you could essentially stall the game out indefinitely. Like, there wasn't the same tools to end the game now. Like, you didn't have to go take a dragon. A dragon just gave you fucking gold. You didn't have to take the Baron.
You didn't even know when it died.
Oh, exactly. So, like, if people don't know, like, also, like, in the modern context, you're talking about, this is an extreme gold lead to come back from.
100%. Yeah. I mean, like,
even with bounties,
pike helps, but
yeah, even with bounties and rubber band mechanics that have been added back into this game, because you saw what happened is that they were down 14k gold, and yes, okay, they get 4 shutdowns, but that only puts you down 10k gold. It's not like, oh, okay, like, yeah, it certainly helps Misfits. Misfits did play out the situation very well, but the only reason they were able to get the picks they did was because G2 was so bad at using Tryndamere pressure. Like, they had a winning 1v1 and they just wouldn't play it.
He got 2 really easy solo kills in lane 2. Like, he was gifted an advantage. This Tryndamere was way further ahead than he had any right to. And I know that Hira has struggled a lot in the 1v1s, and, you know, as much as he was he was great last year. And I think that Brazog did a lot for him as a player in terms of giving him the resources to play the high carry potential champions. He's struggled without so many resources, and that's a compromise between, you know, him not necessarily playing well without the resources, but his team needing to give him resources because the draft demands that, and then not doing that. But this was 2 very easy, just give you freebies for the. I
mean, it's a terrible matchup for Gwen. It's a fucking shit matchup.
Yeah, but even then, like, randomly dying when you're crashing a wave and sticking around just way too far, they were easy ones as far as that matchup goes. And you can have, and as we saw later on, eventually you can stabilize that matchup. Should never have gotten to that point. But I think that G2 had to get the early gold lead, because once you have, as you're saying, the Zeri, the Akali as well, or just, actually anyone with the Yuumi on top of them, eventually is just going to have a point where there's never Frost and a Charm to stop you, and that's not enough, because you save most of your mobility. You use the move speed to close the gap, and you use your flash or whatever defensive abilities you have to just dodge the first CC, and you don't really care after that point. So I do think that G2 played out their last fights very poorly. I think that they wasted a lot of cooldowns onto, like, Jin Zhao, and it just doesn't matter. You know, at that point, you've used all your ults to shut down a Jin Zhao when you have the Akali still out there. You have the Zeri still out there. So I think that G2's target priority was a little hasty in trying to end the game without realizing what difficulty they would be in if they did that. But even with that, these are a lot of comeback mechanics which are helping them do that.
Yeah. And like, if you look at it, G2 was always going to have a disadvantage in terms of team fighting in the late game. Like, you mentioned the lack of hard CC. I'm not even sure that matters, because just the composition that Misfits is running, you have a Gwen with Ghost and Yuumi. That's going straight on your Jinx. Like, there's nothing you can do to stop her. She's just going to ult you at range and then close the gap with Ghost and then just shit on Jinx.
Yeah, Jinx can't play this game.
Yeah, Jinx can't play. And, like, Jinx can't play against Akali with Yuumi. Jinx can't play against Zeri with Yuumi. So there's so many things that they basically just had free access to the carries that it was going to become very difficult in the late game regardless. And so that means it's not that they couldn't win. Obviously, with their gold lead, they should have won, even if they had a modest gold lead, which you would expect given the way these drafts were working. As long as you play Tryndamere pressure well, I think you're okay. The problem is that they would not wait. Like, first off, Broken Blade would misplay. And then when Broken Blade wasn't misplaying, as to basically just taking objectives when his team had pressure across map, he would try and go fight with the team for whatever reason, which was weird. And then the other thing is, like, when Broken Blade didn't have pressure or was starting to move a wave, the rest of his team would fight or get picked off. And so they never actually created the scenario on many, many attempts that was going to result in them winning this game.
Yeah, but even with that, G2 did play out the early game well. I think that Mercer and Zlatan have had some horrid early games this split. Actually, that's one of the things that they've improved a lot in the last couple of weeks. You come into like week 4, 5, and they are hilarious. They were actually the worst early game team after Astralis started stepping up in terms of all the stats for it. And again, stats are whatever. But if you're down however many thousand gold and turret plates and towers and whatever in the early game, then it's very, very easy to see by the numbers that they were struggling at that point. But slowly and surely, they had started to come back into that, and then just slap jungle support. Like, there's nothing they can do. Zlatan is forced out off of his first buff. Bot lane dies really early on, and you think, okay, well, this is some older, spooky moments coming back from Misfits, and they didn't really deal with that very well. But I do think that they managed to stabilize in a way that just characteristically of a team of their veterancy, I wouldn't put towards them. I would have thought, okay, they're probably going to fall apart. They don't really have the leadership and the tenure to kind of overcome this really difficult situation in game, but they did. So that was an interesting learning experience for me about this team in terms of what they can do when they're up against the wall. Interesting seeing that will come out in a best of though, because it's a very different very different vibe to a regular season as opposed to very high stakes matches in playoffs, where obviously they're going to end up being if they're top table.
I mean, here's the thing, as much as League is like a game that is very much team-based, you can't just win if you're one player. Low-key, though, I'm just loving this for the same reason why we were wanting Chovy to go ham at Worlds. Like, in the playoffs, there's only one reason they're winning any playoff series, Misfits, and that is if fucking Viego keeps having these insane games like this. If he does, it's possible, but, like, I don't think his team on paper should beat almost any of the playoff teams. But, like, mate, the way he's been playing, like, it's doable. This guy's just been so unreal this split.
Well, and you love to watch him play too, because he's like not opting into this like quirky Victor bullshit. It's like,
yeah,
let's
exactly.
go Silas, Oswell, Akali, like LeBlanc, like, let's go.
Yes, exactly.
That's what's fun about him. It's like he's just super entertaining to watch.
What was great about that is that like Humanoid was on one of the desk breaks and was saying like, oh, I'm kind of getting tired of the mid lane meta right now, and Vito's just here like just pulling out fucking party poppers of different champions. The guy's just playing a different game.
I've got a meta-related question I want to ask you about. Since in this last game, this champion actually was featured on the losing team, right? Explain this to me, guys. Why is the LEC so in love with Viego? Because I looked it up.
I don't know. I have no idea.
It has won 5 games. It has lost 14 games. And spoiler, even in the Asian regions, it's a losing champion. It's just the difference is, at least in LPL and LCK, they win a lot more with it. By the way, the obvious answer here would be it's picked by the bad team every time. It isn't. No. Spoiler, the best junglers in LEC love this champion. And I don't get it, mate, because when I'm watching it in the games, it does nothing.
I have no idea either. Someone explain it to me. Jesus
I know it was amazing.
So bad.
But why is it played all the time now? I don't get it.
So Viego to me is like the anti-dive jungler. And a lot of people are going to be like, oh, it's great into Hecarim because he overdives and then he dies. But that's in reality, you're left with no ability to engage yourself because you don't have an aggressive jungler. You can gank some bits early, but I don't know. I just don't see it.
So the thing about Viego is like he has a strong level 2. So you can actually create advantages early. Via a gank, but then he has like this power trough that exists through the mid game. And here's my actual theory, Thorin. I think that he's very effective in scrims because those games are fiestas, and Viego is able to get a bazillion resets, and he looks like a fucking god champ as he totally takes over scrims. Now, in real games of League of Legends, where people don't just auto commit to every skirmish that exists.
I did 3 games on a watch party, and every game, the first 10 minutes was there might have been 1 kill collectively across a 3 10-minute. They're super slow now, the games, compared to what they were previously. Yeah.
So I feel like Viego can do things in the extreme early part of the game, but if you fuck that up, then he falls behind.
Exactly, because Viego's such a high gold jungler as well. He needs like 2 items to be relevant. So if you mess up your early game, like what you've effectively given up half a champion for most of your game. Like what do you do at that point?
So I think that this is it's scrim bias basically is my best guess. That it's just that you have scenarios in scrims where he looks very, very dominant, and he feels very dominant because of the way that people tend to skill check and take skirmishes experimentally in scrims, which results oftentimes in the Viego getting huge resets, getting, a huge amount of gold, becoming super dominant. But in games where people are playing more reserved, or because of the skill checks that exist in scrims, they have a better knowledge of when they can and can't win fights. So teams will just opt out of fights that they know they can't win. Then he just sits there and is a potato.
I will say that I in theory, I quite liked how Mad Lions were playing some of their Viego drafts, ones which they had a lot of problems with. And again, we were saying earlier that they would make like 1 or 2 mistakes, and I think particularly the SK loss was a really good example of this. But they're super far ahead. They have the Viego that's been farming up loads. They vertical jungled early. They came into a level 1. They took some buffs. They had a huge jungle advantage. And they aim to stay ahead of the curve. And if you're engaging into the Viego, who's got a lot of gold, he slaughters you, takes that first kill, and gets the reset. But it's really hard to play that kind of very high upbeat style where you're constantly getting to the objectives first. You're constantly trying to push your gold lead, and you then force them into you at pivotal objective fights. But Mad Lions were also like not stacking dragons early. They were going towards the Herald for the gold advantage to get ahead. And then they'd be down 2 dragons when they actually really wanted the enemy to be fighting into them, and they could just give up 2 dragons to stabilize the gold lead. So I think there's some macro stuff going on, which is not helping Viego. I think the early game aggression, I think you're right. I think that you need to be more risky with the Viego, and you need to just hope for a high roll. I don't think you should be picking Viego with that in mind, because I feel like the LEC just doesn't do that well right now, unless you're Rogue. I think Rogue and Fnatic are the 2 early game ganking teams that will actually pull that off. But most of the league, I just don't see Viego working for them. I just stop. For my sake of mine, please stop.
Yeah, for what it's worth, he is 12-12 in LCK, but I think weirdly, there's some things that Europe just has a higher priority on, and Viego is one of those champions as opposed to most other regions.
I think a team we should talk about now, because it's a team that, listen, barring, like, it'd have to be, as far as I can tell, the most insane miracle where, like, 4 teams have exactly the results possible. Essentially, by the way, the playoffs are set in LEC. Yeah. The 2 teams that are mathematically haven't been eliminated is just because mathematically, if those teams lose all their games, the ones above them, and then they win all their games, there's maybe some tiebreaker scenarios. But realistically, it's not looking very likely right now. So one of the teams, basically, who shockingly are going to miss out on the playoffs are the 2-time reigning champions. Mad Lions are in 7th place right now. They are 3 games. There are only 3 games left, by the way. They are 3 games behind the 2 teams above them in the. So again, as I said, you're going to need some like insane fuckery. So at this point in time, functionally, Mad Lions has flunked the split despite being the reigning champions. Now, true, they certainly do not have 2 of the biggest names that they used to have when they were the champion, etc. But I think this is the topic, right? I'll just open it by saying a slightly mean but maybe funny comment. So redundant that I even explained that. All I'll say is this. Do you know what, Mac? Good news is this, mate. Your general game plan with this team is going to work amazingly, because with no playoffs, no MSI, and maybe no worlds, there's no chance your players can burn out. You've succeeded, sir. See, it was a little bit mean. It was a good point, but I made it. The delivery was hurtful.
We knew this was going to happen. Like, Mad Lions couldn't keep getting away with it, right? What they did very well as an org, and to Peter Dunn and their ownership and Mac's credit, was that when no one else was scouting when everyone else was playing the recycle the washed pro game, yes, they were playing the let's actually scout lower leagues game, and they were able to correctly identify many good players. When they made changes last year, in spite of doing well, most people would have said, and we praise them for this. Most people would have said, let's run back our roster from 2020 and 2021. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Instead, they said, here is our core issue. We need a more vocal early game shot caller. We're all inning on Elyoya, a rookie who had a wonderful season, was probably one of the best rookies that LEC has ever had straight out of the gate. Not only in terms of his individual ability, but because of the effect we knew he was having on the comms of the team. Like that is very good. Had excellent stage performance, had excellent playoff performance as a rookie.
He looked like he got the playoff legit, buff, didn't he? He looked even better. Yeah.
Fucking legit player for sure, right? So they took a risk and said, we're not content being top 3. We want to be top 1. They became top 1. Like they deserve credit for that. But as more and more teams are actively scouting into the lower leagues of Europe, and it becomes more difficult to get the exact player you want. And also, not every player is going to be an Elyoya. Like, you just have to admit you got lucky that he didn't crumble under pressure as a rookie, that he was able...
Elyoya's not really Elyoya right now, mate, if you've been watching some of these games. Like...
I don't think Elyoya is...
He looks like he's struggling a bit.
I don't think he's their number one problem. But, I mean, they don't have the coordination that they used to have. That's for sure. It feels like I don't even realize Reeker's like playing in half the games. That like he just exists, but I never see him. He's like a ghost on the map. So it feels like they lack a lot of coordination and pressure. So I don't know. Like I think that Mad Lions was due for a bit of a downturn in their performance because we have to acknowledge that they got unreasonably lucky and that they had a very low amount of competition for the players they were scouting, and both of those things have changed dramatically.
Yeah, and I think that expectations of Mad Lions were you can't realistically set them as title champions 3-4 times back to back with a new roster coming in like this.
They also shouldn't have beaten Rogue. So they have a fraud title, frankly, in my mind.
And yet it's still in their silverware cabinet, so they got away with it. They're happy with it.
He is a KT roster fan. Let's just put that out there as an ambiance.
Look, I mean, I recognize that KT's 2014 title was also fraudulent.
That's just the coin flipped their way to a title.
That is true.
Coin flipped like sick. Oh god, it was a great split. That summer 2014, but
it was probably the greatest split in any region in League of Legends history that was capped
because
by the most fraudulent fucking final.
It was Monty. Logically. Listen, I'm not talking real alchemy. I'm talking like whack anime, full alchemist brotherhood level alchemy, understand? But essentially what they did, Monty, was by exchanging the most fraudulent bullshit split ever against, by the way, one of the best Korean teams ever, they got to win one time, and then all the real KTB teams that should have won never got to ever win. So that's what happens. Don't fuck around with black magic, kids. Don't do it. Don't do it ever.
And they ruined the best split in League of Legends history by doing that. So
don't worry,
KT Arrows.
The only team that people remember from that era is Samsung White. Anyone, we forget about the golden era of OGN, sadly.
I don't know.
But the thing about the Mad Lions is that I'd heard great things about Unforgiven. He was from everyone that I know in the ERL.
Yes.
Like
he's been doing pretty well.
And actually, I think he's overperformed considering the level that the LEC is and the level of the AD carries that we've typically.
Also, it's a very unique champion pool. Fair play. Seems like a pretty cool guy.
Yeah, and he was coming from the ERLs. He was a big aggressive Draven player and stuff like this. For him to develop and show the poise that he did do, particularly in the first half of the split, was better than I was expecting. Now, Rika was always very streaky, even in Prime League. Now, those streaks when he was like on the hot streak, doing really, really well, he effectively carried his team from like, I don't know, second, third or whatever to like straight to the top through I think the way the Prime League playoffs worked was that it was kind of like a gauntlet system. And he effectively solo killed his way to a title down at that level and then did pretty well in EU Masters on top of that too. Got to the semifinals and took Carmine Quarter 5 games. But it's a very different level of competition. It's not top of the table LEC. Yes, I think that EU Masters it's a relevant level of competition when you're looking towards picking up new talent for the LEC. Absolutely, I think we've seen some great ERL players come through that kind of mechanism, but that doesn't remove the fact that he's always been streaky. If you're taking just his results on the very best, you could definitely say that what the hell's this player doing? He's a ghost in the games, and what's his champion pool like? But I think the sad thing is that in this LEC, we've only seen kind of cold streak Rika. I hope that they do put a bit more time into him because I think that he does have potential. Question is, how much are you willing to do that as an org in terms of the process outside of that? I don't think all of these problems lie with Rika. I think the way that they're playing the game is problematic. I think that Armut's struggling. I think that another big thing is that jungle support was where Mad Lions was best. I wouldn't say uncontested. Yeah. I wouldn't say uncontested because I was like, out and out best jungle support duo. But like they were very, very good. I think that was... but now that's not really the case. You've got Rogue, you've got Fnatic, you've got even G2, you've got some good stuff going on with that, right? So even their strongest strength is now like at best like fourth in the region. And that's really problematic when the one person who stood up to be a carry on your team throughout the second half of the split in Elyoya can't do enough, and the team isn't really playing a style that supports Elyoya popping off. Now, maybe if they'd discovered Hecarim earlier, we'd be having a different conversation. I think that would have been a great pick for them. And actually, the game which they lost against Fnatic, they lost it themselves. And given the fact that, Fnatic do look like the best team in the league right now, them having to lose that game, it shows what could have been with this roster and this split. And it's a little sad that we see it so late. But at the end of the day, it took them a long time to figure out how they wanted to play, and they're reaping the rewards for that.
I want to make a point because there's a lot of coaches watch these shows. In fact, spoiler, even when some of these shows, like some of them are shows that are way lower viewed, there's like sometimes more people in the bully industry watch than the random fans, because the joke is the industry people sometimes, they sometimes know like, oh, this is going to be interesting, I might want to hear about this person. Whereas a random player's like, I don't know this guy. So anyway, basically, loads of coaches will definitely watch this thing. So if you want to battle me on this point, just get your points ready and I'll see you on the next episode. Because I'm sick and tired generally. I'm going to do a video on my side channel about this as a general topic. But I'm getting really sick, Monty, of people just basically moving the goalposts when a player isn't a star player. So what happens, right, is this. We have a discussion about Rika, right? Now, I set it up the way the conversation should be set up. It goes like this. You are the championship team in the league, and you had arguably the best player at the most important position mid lane to win that championship, right? When you then make your next team, it has to, just by definition, you have to contrast against the previous team. Sure, you could definitely add in all caveats like we sort of did here, which is you're not essentially the best business though, so you have to sell the players sometimes. If someone offers you crazy amount, yeah, you sell it and you try and reinvest. You try and get a new player. So I understand that, like, realistically, it isn't realistic to say you have to give me the humanoid, the sequel to humanoid, right? Yeah, you're not going to find that. But here's the problem. That is effectively what you are trying to do when you make this next Mad Lions roster. So my problem is this, Nymaera. I agree, and loads of coaches have even privately said this to me. They'll say stuff like, yeah, but Rika isn't like, he didn't lose them the game. Yeah, but Rika played it all right. His laning phase was fine. Or, you know what, he played like an okay Rise game. Like, he knows what he's doing. Like, or you know what, give him time as you look at. Here's the problem though. No, it goes the other way. Here's how I would flip it. I would go, if I was making an LEC team and I asked myself a checklist, what do I need to have the best LEC team? Remember, we were just champions, so I've got to at least try and believe I can win, right? One of the number one on my checklist would be have one of the best mid laners in the league. They have failed immediately. Yeah. So it can't now be what then they go, but he's not the worst. He's not the worst. But he plays the most important role. That's the problem. So that is my main issue when we have this discussion. Because essentially, by the way, the same thing happens in Counter-Strike if you watch that ever. People will sometimes do the same thing about a player if he's the AWPer, the sniper, but he's not the worst player on the team. They'll go, but he's not the worst. It's like, bro, that position is the highest resource position in the game by definition. So if you're that player not being the worst, that doesn't even begin to fulfill your qualities there. In theory, just theory, you should be the best. So similarly, right, if you're going to play European League of Legends, in theory, your mid lane doesn't have to be the best. He has to be one of your best players, though. And he almost certainly must be a star player if you're going to win leagues. Like, remember, there's no LEC title where someone, like, just fucking plays Malzahar and wins it. That doesn't happen in Europe, mate. That's some bullshit they do in Asia where they have different players. They can play around other lanes. In Europe, it's mid lane or get fucked. So as a result, like, there's no world where Rico was ever going to pop off like this. The joke is, you look elsewhere in the league, like, there are actually other mid laners that were, like, less likely to have pop-offs where it's like, where's this guy? So, unfortunately, like, look, I can sort of see why maybe Mad Lions recruited him. Like, based on what they're saying, it sounds like maybe he has, like, good comms or he has a good mind for the game or he does what the coaches want. But at the end of the day, like, ultimately, it's a performance league. And as I will again repeat, this is the European League of Legends league, mate. Like, in this scenario, it's fuck or walk if you're a mid lane. So I don't care about anything else. Oh, great teammate, great. It's like, I want to do the fucking Alec Baldwin Street. Great, fuck off and have a team meeting, be the assistant coach, then cocksucker. This is mid lane. Win me some lanes, get me some kills, dominate some fucking picks. Do any of these things. Yeah, so at the moment, like, this guy's just sort of turning up and keeping his head down, trying not to get asked questions, then wait until the fucking bell rings. Like, that ain't enough. I need you on the honor roll, motherfucker, if you want to win.
On a bit of a tangent from this, which is
crap together. Go on, come on.
A little relevant is that. So when I was coming on for my first week of LEC, I was actually wondering, because this was the point where XL were doing quite poorly. So XL's academy team in the NLC has a mid laner called M&S, and M&S is currently the global solo kill leader. He's got 30 kills.
He's the guy who plays all the assassins, right?
He played Kai'Sa mid lane as a counter to Corki. He's played 14, something like 13 champions, 14 games, had 2.5 solo kills a game. And he's an absolute just crazy guy. So I was wondering if they were actually just going to, like, kick Nuke Dog down and bring this guy in, because at that point you're like, well, okay, at what point do you just kind of pull the plug and say, sweet, just get this person who's really on form in? But I think it's always a difficult decision to make, because actually one of the criticisms that EU's had, and LCS2 actually to a lot of this extent, is that you'll have someone come in and they'll do poorly for like a split or a season, and they just get chucked into the dump, and they're like never seen again. They're never really developed. It's very sink or swim. But I think particularly with a team like Mad Lions, who did so well at cracking the problem which EU had in terms of not just having star power, but having cohesion as a team.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
I wonder if this is kind of a follow-on from them trying to strike gold twice with this and trying to say, look, it might take us a while to work things out, but we think we can work with the pieces because they've seen it work before. It's a very difficult decision.
They keep the same roster. If they manage to do a Misfits basically and keep the same roster like Misfits did last year, and then it does actually blossom in summer, I will absolutely reverse position, give all the coaching credit.
But you have to do it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
The question's been asked very, very heavily at this point. You have to do it at that point, and that's obviously very difficult for everyone involved. But then you look at like Elyoya, who is playing a very, I'm not going to say like self-serving style, but like he's still playing like the Canyon style of League of Legends, playing like the last couple of years in terms of just like, I'm going to be the carry, I'm going to be like the tip of the spear.
His most played champion is Graves.
Yeah, all this other stuff, right? It fits him, right? It fits him. And then you've got players like Armor and Rika who are underperforming, particularly Armor, given what we saw from him like last year. Like, as much as he wasn't always going to be the star pop-off player, he had fantastic NAR performances. He had some great Wukong performances too. Now he's like...
That's the problem.
What was the Aatrox picks? All of this stuff.
Well, to be fair, to be fair, Armut has always been an Aatrox player, right?
Just don't R2 it. Just
look.
Aatrox
blows. Like, we can have that conversation too, because I just sit there and watch. I mean, I just sit there and watch League of Legends around the world and watch Aatrox be useless every fucking game right now. So like, it's stupid. And who knows why people are doing it? But he does technically, Arma does have a 79% historic win rate on Aatrox, and it's his 5th most played champ at 19 games. So he has been very good on it.
It's going to go down if he keeps playing at money. That's going to be like 60 next week. So.
It's true. But like I think if you look at the way that Mad Lions was constructed last year. So here's the big difference, I think, is that with Rogue, they have completely reinvented themselves based on the players that they have had, right? To me, it feels like Mad Lions has not reinvented their play style from last year.
They iterate on the blueprint, as far as I can tell. If you look at who they get,
So to explain, how did we have to ask ourselves, like, what was great about Mad Lions? It was humanoid. Obviously, was a huge impact on this team. He would play signature champions where he would have immense pressure on the map, like Twisted Fate. And what was Armit's job? Armit's job was basically to play Armit champs in the top lane, which are Gnar, Jace, Wukong, Aatrox, right? And they had a particular style, and I think the comparison between Elyoya and Canyon is astute, because he's playing like Graves, Lee Sin, like these are Canyon champs. And the point is that Armit does Armit things in top lane, and he's going to do well on Armit champs and provide value, but he's not really the focus of the team. The focus of the team is Elyoya and Humanoid and Kaiser exerting massive map pressure alongside Elyoya. Now, when you have a guy who, as far as I can tell, doesn't do anything in the mid lane. He certainly is not the massive like gravity well that's like, drawing people to him, or like, the force, like, pushing the other team very heavily. Then all of a sudden you have a guy in top lane who's playing Armit champs, which limits what you can do with compositions and limits the way you can play the game. Elyoya can't apply the same pressure without the backup of Humanoid, and Kaiser is with a new guy in the bot lane, and Carzzy, I'm not the biggest Carzzy fan in the universe, but he does play a specific style, and he can be left alone. He's a very self-sufficient weak side AD carry, and that's great in the right roster.
But what you're looking for is a secondary carry, and effectively saying that Armit's not going to do that because of his style, and you've got 2 rookies to choose between with that. So effectively, you kind of struck out, and you're hoping that one of the rookies is going to be an insane rookie.
Right.
And as we discussed, it's not really ended up like that.
I mean, the whole point of Armor is that he's a distraction. He just wastes your fucking time, and you try and go and gank him 50 times, It's not, that's
Armor, you splash.
It's not just the whole game, exactly, yeah.
So, like, I don't think it's Armit's fault. It's just that Armit had a job.
Team
the philosophy is just flawed right now, and it's like Rogue went from ultimate farm jungle to ultimate gank jungle, but they play around both of those styles. Like, they know the pieces, and it just I literally cannot tell you what Reeker's strengths are. I do not know. But I mean, can you tell me something? Like, I don't know what they are. I watch his games, and like, I don't know what, like, nothing goes into my brain about Reeker.
I mean, like, it's so weird because you look at his everything from last season, and you'd think you're looking at a different player, really. He tried to pull out the Aurelia, Renekton mid, a lot of his melee champions he had been playing on the LEC, and they just didn't find any success with that. There was that one game against Fnatic where he was, he got solo killed in lane. Yeah, he got one back later, but you're playing Renekton versus Victor. If you're giving up a solo kill to a Victor, his mission failed at that point. So yeah, as much as it's like difficult for the dude, he's not really had that much to go off of in this split. The question is, what can you develop on there? What are you aiming to go towards with that? Is there an answer in terms of like, actually maybe Elyoya needs to go towards a more facilitating style, break kind of trend with what he's been doing before? Well, that's quite difficult to do because that seems to be the strong point of the team, but your lanes aren't doing that for you. So you're left at this catch-22 where you need some give from somewhere in the roster, and it's just not there yet. And obviously they're going to have a long like mid-season break to try and figure any of that out.
Thing is, if you look at the champions Elyoya players as well, it's like, mate, if he actually had a really good mid laner, he'd be like a fucking MVP candidate again. Like, look at he's played all the ones where he just smashed jungle mid.
Yeah, I mean, I do wonder what would have happened if they picked up Hecarim earlier. I do think that Hecarim is insanely strong right now, and we saw that game versus Fnatic. It allows Elyoya to be the early game farming guy and be the pathing guy to get maximum resources, exert himself onto the map beyond like level 6 and stuff. And we saw that work even against Fnatic, like we were saying, best team in the league currently. But it's too little, it's a little too late. And as much as, he tried a couple of games of Volibear like that beforehand, he's not really stuck to that. And he's not found any success on the Viego really either. So
I think the problem with Volley is like what was so impressive about Elyoya coming out as a rookie was that he was playing Volibear when other people weren't last year. And he was doing, insane like popping out of like raptor pit to dive people into mid lane turret, but that would feed humanoid. And like it feels like there's a purpose to doing that because you're sacrificing late game strength to pull off some like crazy ganks that he was great at, and like he's a great Volibear player. But somebody who's not him has to do things with those resources, and it just doesn't feel like that's it. And I'm not saying that Reeker's like actively losing them games because he's not. He's just not doing.
He's not the role which the team needs currently. And I mean, I think Unforgiven was that for most of the first part of the split. He was kind of being that kind of, and the meta should absolutely give you the ability to do that through bot lane, but that hasn't been consistent enough. So yeah, I mean, when you say like, how do you triage, how do you fix mad lines? It's like, well, I mean, there's a whole dozen different things going wrong with them right now, and it's very difficult to solve at the end of it. As much, and you can have the best coaching staff in the world. It's a really hard problem to contend with because it's kind of the opposite side of the coin to what they found last year in terms of having a roster with everyone on the same page and understanding like the philosophy of the game they want to play. It feels like they just have the opposite of that right now, and you've got players who are pulling in different directions. So it's very hard to deal with.
By the way, since earlier Monty was making that point about how like intuitive Counter-Strike is to watch, here's one of the reasons why you genuinely need to have like 100 million people play League of Legends, or we're never going to ever get those viewership numbers up. But champions like Hecarim are why, mate? Because at the end of the day, if I tune into a Counter-Strike broadcast, I can go like, oh, what's going on here? Like, oh, so what are the teams? Is that going better that way? But I'm already in the game. I can get the concept. Again, I've always thought League was bad for this anyway with all the cutesy champions. But like, if you think of that like arcade Hecarim thing, if I just opened a stream and that champion was on screen, well, it's got like fucking, it looks like it has like sunglasses on it, it's got like a guitar or whatever, and it's a horse in metal arms. I would just instantly press the X, mate. I'd just close the thing down and go, you know what? What's this Minecraft thing you kids are into? I can vaguely get my head around that. Like, this
I'll take one party pony to go. I'm all on that. One day they're gonna release enough horse champions to have like the full Horseman of the Apocalypse comp, and then it's gonna be great. It's gonna be wonderful.
They only have 2 now, unfortunately. What?
Well, we got
I guess sort of.
All I'm going to say is if Riot had any balls at all, they'd just make an ivermectin skin.
That's actually great.
Straight fire?
They'd also, Doa and my joke is that they would, Doa and my...
Just be careful, Nymaera, just be careful, that's right. Just smile.
Ivermectin.
There you go. There you go. See, all I'm saying, right, is just fucking stop having your panties in a bunch and let the real creatives have a crack at this motherfucker.
They'll roll it out on the same patch that they roll out Alt Rise. That's my.
There you go. There you go.
That's Nymaera's joke.
Yes. And the joke is
like Walker Texas Rengar as well.
Destroys
what Alt Rise is instead of it being called Realm Warp, his actual ability is he just moves the Overton window. So he just constantly moves the Overton window, and as a result, no one can. You never know where you are politically with Alt Rise. That's the thing. Exactly. It's okay. Right. Anyway, go back to talk about things Nymaera can join us on. Where if he wants to appear on LEC broadcasts again, I will reiterate that last part.
Yep.
If he wants to appear on LEC broadcasts. So, right. What about this then? Another team to talk about. I think this is one that's very interesting. Is you said it before. You said because a lot of people share your opinion. By the way, Alfari did last week. A lot of people still essentially think Rogue will get found out in the playoffs, and they think basically privately Fnatic is just the best team for real. And I have to say, there's an angle from which I can agree, but this is my problem. I actually think if you look this split, they've had loads of fucking dodgy ass games, and like for the first half of split, it didn't even look like Razork and Humanoid even met each other. It looked like they weren't even aware they were on the same team. But I will say, as mad as it sounds, because the rest of the league has been so all over the place and every team's so patchy with the rosters, dude, they do even when they look like they're going to throw all these games, they still win them somehow. It's like the floor of the roster is so insane. They just can't lose like less than fucking. They can't. It's like they couldn't lose 6 games this split. It just couldn't happen somehow. So in some ways, that gives me hope actually that the roster is mega.
As long as the meta stays for Fnatic, just like if you win bot 2v2, game's pretty much over. Particularly with how Healy's playing as well. I don't see Fnatic losing this split, unless you've got like a mega turnaround from G2 that managed to find a way to like leverage their really strong mid jungle in the early game. I think that if the meta changes away from bot lane to mid jungle somehow, some way, maybe I'd favor G2 if they kind of get their shit together. They've had some awkward games too recently, but on the whole, I think that Fnatic have. Yeah, they've out-muscled and out-brawled their way through this. It's not necessarily the best outlook on the game at all points. I think that, hell, even Upset was saying in the post-game lobby from their win versus Mad Lions, again, the one which kind of Mad Lions threw to them, is like, yeah, you know, we kind of, they had to lose that game for us to win. You know, I'm not necessarily happy with that. The fact that they can get away with that is, against, you know, what is a mid-table team still, is probably not a great indication for the region. I don't think the LEC is awful. I think that we've got some issues around, you know, not having great top laners right now outside of like Alfari. I think Alfari has been great the last week. But, you know, outside of that, you've got like Broken Blade who's set up for success, or that's kind of it. I think that if Fnatic continue to play through their bot 2v2, I don't see a world where they lose this split.
I also think it helps that Razork has looked a lot better in the last couple of weeks,
yeah.
And he's like, it seems like he's gelling better with Hylissang and the rest of the team, and Hylissang has also had some. Sure.
Say my take on that one. Listen, again, it's obviously an abstract one because I'm not an expert about the game. But my take on the Razork one is this, because again, I think the reason why I like to do these tangents on podcasts is an area I actually have an advantage over the plebs watching the show is they only know this video game and they might just watch like from last year or something. Whereas I've watched a lot of different competitive games. One thing I will say I'm getting the vibe about from Razork is this. I'm getting the vibe of when someone, this happens, it's most famous with managers in football, actually, like European soccer, if people don't know. There's a concept where you're called a small club manager. Now, that's someone basically where I would even maybe compare it to like Mac from Mad Lions. It's someone where your skill set basically is you have to find the up-and-coming players because you're not getting the big names, you're not signing like the best player from last season. You have to find the talent, you have to mold them, you have to make a structure that can fit them in. You maybe even have to band-aid for a couple of bad players that you don't have the money for, defend left back or something, or a winger or something. You have to do something creative with like a different formation maybe. But the problem is this, when that happens, since the guy has been so amazing with working with almost nothing, you will nearly always get offered a gig by one of the top teams. They'll go, bring that guy in, he looks fucking amazing. Yeah. There's a very famous example of this, and people know, but I won't give the obvious example. And basically what happens is, when you come into the big team, Well, suddenly you don't need any of the things that your skill set match. Like, you don't need to find the next star. You don't need to bring. Suddenly, you've just been given all the best players in the world, like internationals for different, like mega players. And now it's a different skill set. Your skill set now is, what would you do if you had the full arsenal? What would you do if you had the best player in this position? And that, because that's a different skill set. Some people, essentially, you find out all they can do is the first thing. They never make the jump. And so, and by the way, it can go vice versa. Famously, sometimes a great coach
thing
gets
in the military,
fired.
actually, where if you're promoted in the military, and it's like, well, they're doing perfectly at this role, which we very much need here. And now they're getting pushed into like a desk position and blah, blah, blah. And that's obviously just not what they have done to get to that point. It's not like a linear progression.
Yes. So my problem basically is when I look at Razork's game, right? So when people were calling him, I think it's justified. It was my opinion as well. Last split, I actually thought he was an MVP candidate. I looked at that Misfits team, and as much as, yes, Viego had a better split and here it looked a lot better, I looked at Razork and I was like, dude, he might be like the best jungler of the whole league. This guy's doing really well.
Crazy.
But think about it, right? He was working with rookies as his solo lanes. Essentially, in that scenario, beyond unless they have some enormous ego, he essentially, it was his team. He probably decided what he wanted to do. By the way, I doubt you even feel any compunction about just doing whatever you want. That's now you're the veteran player. You're the one who's been around a while. These are players still proving themselves. They might even have limited champion pools. The problem now is he's been then given the call up to Fnatic, and in Fnatic they've said, right, here's the best team on paper. And by the way, every other player on your team has been all LEC, has been a star player, might even have been an MVP candidate, which I think is the case for every player in his team. Right? In that world, all of a sudden, if you're Razork, now it's not a question of can you play with that team. It's a question of things like, were you someone where you took for granted you had the green light? Were you someone where the team was based around what you wanted to do? Was it everyone else just follows up on you? Sometimes you walk into the room he walked into, and maybe in that room it's like, right, Opposite expects this from you. Wonder likes to be ganked in this way. Humanoid, well, listen, I played with El Yoyo and chat. Just figure it out, mate. You'll know what to do. Like, sometimes the situation can be so different that even though you got better teammates, you might end up looking totally lost. Because I've noticed this split. Listen, he's had some better games, but I've never felt like there was a synergy in that team. Like, I don't know what it is, because I still think he's a great player.
He's facilitated more than he's been like the real playmaker. I think he's had some good Diana games, and I think that's because he can kind of he can just chill for the first however many minutes and then just come into team fights in level 6 and, you know, get 2 items on Diana and you're more than ready to team fight. There is actually the truth and the opposite of the analogy you're saying too, though, in terms of like someone coming from a too many voices situation and making a really great team out of just having the whole team conform to your game plan.
Oh, sure.
So for instance, there's a really interesting example from the LGL, which I'll ration myself to one thing today. So there's a player called Honey, who last year came from bottom place team, really shit. He's an AD carry, and he played for a couple of years, but he hadn't really achieved anything. Goes into a team called Axes, and then for that year, he picks up the Jinx Aphelios meta before anyone else does, kind of globally, and he was the highest DPM player of any Worlds qualifying region, like with like 750 or something like that across the entire season. So I think that different mindsets will cater towards different things. I think that Razork hasn't done too badly, actually. I think that he's taken a while to kind of even out. I think that he's not the volatile player on that team. You just kind of let Hilly do their thing, and they'll do whatever. It very much helps that you have Humanoid. You can't play this style without, you know, Humanoid effectively just saying, mid's going to be fine. You don't need to worry about mid jungle. You can just do whatever. I'm going to buy you time to become relevant, and you'll have bot lane to do that instead to kind of play through your early game. But yeah, I think that it took a little while for Razork to kind of like utilize the space which he'd been given in an efficient manner, because sometimes he was just a little quiet.
Because if people don't even know, by the way, there's even a famous example from last year, which is essentially, if you believe what he says in interviews, even Reckless did that. The premise was Reckless walked into G2, and whereas in theory, by the way, G2 hoped they were getting like the best ADC who's now going to help us like redesign the style of the team. And then the premise is he walked in thinking, well, I'm just joining the 4 people who won everything, so I'll just like sort of be quiet and let them do that. And the premise was they never sort of figured out the game plan until like halfway through the year. So I get this vibe about Razork right now. I will say, you're still an amazing team. As we've said, like there's still plenty of reasons you should at least be in the final, maybe even win the split. Well. And you've got you've got like a good coach. For me, it's more like I'm looking forward to the playoffs the next split, because they have to fix this. If they don't as well, by the way, here's the bad thing if you're Razork. Other teams, they'll take a big name signing and they'll stick around. If it doesn't work out with Razork, mate, with how good the rest of that team is, I would replace you instantly, mate. I'd gamble on someone else. I'm sorry, that's just the way it works when you're in a stacked super team.
I can see some logic towards that. I mean, again, it does kind of come down to it just feels like in Europe, it's more about cohesion than star power. But then that cohesion factor changes with the patch. It changes halfway through a season. I would imagine even that a lot of the teams that were built, because remember that the teleport change happened like after preseason. It happened after a lot of rosters were already written in. And I wonder how many teams that's actually affected too.
I just roll my eyes here. I'm just like,
all right.
GMing must be the absolute fucking worst.
I know.
It's like, oh, well, I already built my team.
Can you even imagine another sport? Because remember, Riot doesn't just tweak. Like, tweak's too kind a word for the meta.
It's a major fucking game system.
They sometimes effectively just, you wake up and it's like, without your permission, they just like amputate both of your legs. Like, what the fuck? But I'm a 100-meter runner. Like, so that's being a GM. It's like if you were a GM in the NFL, right? And then you've signed an amazing like receiver con. They're like, yeah, there actually is no wide receiver in American football now. Like, well, you could try him as a running back.
And then Thorin.
You know what I mean? Like,
here's the shit frosting on the shit cake. They come out later and they're like, we think adaptability is the most valuable trait of a professional player. And you're just like, fuck you.
Yeah, I feel really bad in particular because I mean, there was, for instance, there were so many mid laners of like ever since like season 8 when Silas was reworked, released rather. Silas and Akali in particular, who would like. Their whole identity as a player was, I am TPing somewhere at level 3 to level 6 and clearing up kills.
Oh, of course, yeah.
You cannot do that now. You can't do that. You have to stick in lane, and if you've played shit for the first 3-4 waves, that's on you. And that has changed a little bit of the landscape as to a lot of particularly solo laners have to play things out. Obviously in bot lane, I mean, obviously it's been changed in terms of being able to play like high pressure lanes like the Jinx, Caitlyn and stuff like that. But every single lane has had major early game play options removed from them, which they would snowball into big mid game advantages. And that changes the way you have to view the game.
You know what's sick, Monty? This is actually sick. Think how long I've watched League of Legends for. And usually my favourite players are the ones with insane longevity, right? Think about the things that have been available this split. So first of all, think about the style of mid lane he just described. Fragging. Then let's go. There's no TPs in the bot lane. You have to play 2v2 properly in the bot lane. Forgiven. And then there's the whole breaker for split pushing. Flame. None of these fucking players play actively anymore. Not a single one of these consumers plays official games anymore. They played like the whole time right up and now. And then they just quit. They are great. Thanks, guys.
I hear that Darian's streaming again. Maybe you can.
Shall I fucking hell? Give me a break.
Maybe you can phone Darian up. He's been streaming recently.
Meanwhile, like I say, don't worry, He and Wild Turtle are still around. Well, I guess Wild Turtle's a coach, technically, whatever. I guess he's not.
He had a great year last year. He had a really good one.
Right. In my opinion, he just proved that support doesn't exist except Core JJ in any. There's Vulcan, Core JJ, and then after that, you may as well say Hui.
I heard his Halo guy is pretty good.
Not only that, but all of the Thorin, like even the big dick top laners like Noguri are just taking a break right now, which. Oh, like that's fun, I guess, for me. It's all right. I'm pretty sure Noguri is going to have enough of his break after MSI when Damwon goes and offers him a giant check. I think that's probably likely to happen at this stage, given Damwon's current performance and why they're having issues.
But even with that, I look at particularly EU top laners. I'm like, you go international right now, even with some of like the huge whales, like just not in the pool. That I feel like EU top laners are going to have a really hard time internationally. We don't have really like premier split pushes.
Oh, you look at that fucking top lane. Oh my god, it's like fucking. I can't even make an extreme enough hyperbolic analogy. Like it's like fucking Somalia or something, mate. It's like, what is this shit? Like, dude, if here's the problem, right? If I just even asked you to do your top 3, it's gonna get real depressing by like number 3. That's how bad it is. Like,
well, the problem is that Riot created years of top lane just being a cuck role, and now that you can actually, fuck, there's nobody left to fuck.
I mean, if MSI will be okay because we have Ahri. If he makes it. But that's not going to happen.
You think Vitality is going to be the team that
No, I think so. I was like, so I'm going into desperation mode. So I went through this mind thing of like, who's the top lane? Alfari, he's the top one. Only one top laner goes to MSI. And I'm like, no, he's never actually going to be on the number 1 team. So that's actually completely irrelevant. We're going to end up, I think we have okay kind of pressure soak top laners. We've got people who can play. Odo's going to be fine on stuff like on the Graves, on the Ornn, and they're going to be okay at like nullifying some lanes. But as we've seen in the LPL already, like that's not really enough versus the top caliber teams out there. So I'm a little worried about top laners from EU going international. Just because of the style of players. We have the defensive side of it kind of okay, aggressive side of it. It's just not going to happen from the top laners we're likely to send, I don't think.
All right, at least
Indeed.
NA has Summit.
He's pretty okay, I hear, yeah.
Yeah, he's been doing great. But he might not make it either. But Whipple will be fun at least internationally. I think NA actually will be
Whipple
okay.
back though. Yeah, so the joke is if you're EU, you can't lose, can you? We just get Whipple back and then we'll have Wonder or something go, so no problem. Just have that matchup again internationally.
That would be really cool, actually. I'd enjoy that.
Speaking of which, by the way,
we're talking about Vitality.
Wait a minute. So you mean if Cloud9 is actually the team that goes? No, it's this that, dude. This that. People made fun of NA last year because like they sent like the 3 teams and then there was like fuck all NA players. It's worse now. Look at Team Liquid and Cloud9. Like, who's from NA? Like, essentially you have to just lie and go like Fudge is technically counted as an NA, right? Like that's all you got. There's nothing left. There's Blabber, whatever. Let's admit, okay. I don't think he's the player I want to be supporting internationally, personally, but might just be me on that one.
I don't know. I was quite happy with
his, technically Canadian.
I know. I'm quite happy with Blabber's services to the Detonation Focus Me era of inting the Scuttle Crab. People forget that it was DFM on the other side of that. I was very happy with that play. So he's done me a great service. I'll remember
it was
that.
It was a critical match for DFM.
There it was. One that didn't matter in the grand scheme of things, but made
it
in some really good.
Blabber is the 21st century American. Look at him. He's out there in the international community, whether he's invited or not, trying to enforce his cultural standards and beliefs about how the world should be upon everyone else, whether it's appropriate or indeed even works.
It's also true to America. We really don't want I personally am embarrassed most of the time when Americans go abroad and express themselves in other countries. So the key is just to not have any of them doing that.
Well, the joke is, Monty, back in the day, in the early 2000s, a lot of people, if they would travel from North America, they were worried that people might see the country they come from as like totalitarian and really shitty and doesn't value human rights. So they would pretend back then to be Canadian. The joke writes itself. The joke writes itself. You fill in the punchline. You see, spoiler, Uno reverse card. So anyway, whatever. Doing all the jokes today. Basically, all the jokes I can't join in on, but whatever.
Okay, yeah, but what if we actually, because obviously one of the great exports which America has is a lot of its entertainment industry. We could have the deadliest catch, like the crab fishing show, just for Blabber, just Blabber deadliest catch.
That'd actually be a fire photo.
Sure.
Someone
get on it. I'm sure there are people in chat who can do that.
Send it to Nymaera on Twitter. The deadliest catch. So good. Yeah, I actually used to live in Northern California where a lot of that crab fishing occurred.
Cool.
Yeah, good times. So do we want to talk about Vitality a little bit? Because I think now that you brought them up.
Here's the good news. Yeah. The good news is this. Despite the fact there were times when it was touch and go, the one thing we all needed from Vitality is at least make the playoffs, please, because everyone's hoping that's when we can see what the real. At least we can. At least that's happened. Yeah. At least now we don't have to worry about the world where they did like a Misfits season 9 and just don't even make the playoffs or just ruin the whole. So at least they're in the playoffs. Good news. The problem is now so much of this lineup, so much of what needs to happen in this lineup, right, is now all resting on that premise of but we can sort of fuck around and phone it in and then we'll do it in the playoffs. Listen, that whole we'll do it in the playoffs has it's like that old meme format, step 1, do this, step 3, question mark, step 4, win LEC. It's what the fuck is step 3? What are you going to do between now and the finals to fix things? Because listen, it's not impossible on paper, but I'll tell you what, I can't see the solutions, obviously. This team looks messy as fuck.
I mean, the one thing they have got going for them, which I really liked out of this last week, was just isolate Alphari's winning matchup.
Yep.
They win games. They have one winning game plan right now, and that's really fucking good. Don't let them have it. But for some reason, I mean, I think particularly the SK game really annoyed me because it was another Aatrox game. It was an Aatrox experience. I'm not really sure it really counted as a gameplay at that point.
To be fair, they played Alphari into Aatrox twice this week. So
I don't get it.
So we can play a game. Is it Alphari or is it enemy playing Aatrox. Alphari
but
or
either
Aatrox.
way, but it's not even that. It's like it's the Aatrox who doesn't get any jungle attention, and then like the gangplank builds Hullbreaker, and then they can't even 2v1 him at that point. So I don't know.
Monty, you fucked it up. We said it last week. The line is it OP or is it OP.gg? There you go. That was the line. Remember the Maybelline joke. There you go. Whatever. We'll bring that back. That'll be back in the meme gumbo next week. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, I do feel like Alphari was like the one person like, sweet, that is a winning scenario. Keep drafting towards that. And I don't get why, and particularly for SK as well in that one game, it felt like they had been succeeding by having really good nullifying top lanes, early drafting Graves, building Hullbreaker, perma-shoving in, no volatility in that lane, just allow it to go into mid game with full push. I don't think you ever want to give Vitality a top lane matchup that can fight early and can eventually scale into relevance in that game. So as long as they keep doing that, they're very dangerous, and that gives them time to work on other things. Now the question is, what else are you going to work on? Because I haven't seen much that's impressed me outside of that. As you said, it has been very messy. A lot of the fundamentals have been a little bit missing in terms of, again, stuff like their objective setup, the way that they play around side lanes and lane allocation. Their map play has been... If you put them into an even fight, yeah, they can out-hands you. They can just click the buttons really well, but getting to that point is just
my favorite thing of Vitality is what people should do is they should watch a Vitality game and then they should watch a T1 game. Because what T1 does is that they will rotate their bot lane to take an objective and have good timings. Vitality will rotate their bot lane when there isn't an objective and do nothing and walk into the enemy jungle and like farm Grump. And like it's like they're the bad version of T1.
Bizarro T1.
It's like, yeah, it's the
B1. There you go. It's B1, the Vitality, the bees. There you go.
Yeah, can we have T1 at home?
No, but seriously, like I don't understand a lot of times.
We've got the goal as well.
It's like Labrov and Carzzy are like desperate to leave their lane and like go help Alphari, but they end up just doing absolutely nothing instead.
Oh man, there was something which they were doing as well, and I went pretty deep into this because I did a little segment in one of the break bits in terms of like there have been some times where they will literally see the enemy jungler on a ward and they'll have like the whole bot side warded out and they'll see the jungler. They've just finished Raptors and gone towards top side and they're like, oh, bot lane's reset. Huh, that's the Jhin stood alone in lane, so their Leona's not there at this point.
I watched that. It was a really good segment by you, by the way.
It's like, where could they be? And they just turn up top lane. Selfmade's like, drat, I thought it would just be the jungler. And then there's just a Leona.
There you go.
That was actually a really good Telestrator segment by you. I saw that.
I finally defeated the first Telestrator one was...
No, it was a really salient point is that, but I brought this up on the show before, is that they don't even seem to be communicating basic wave states with each other. Like Alphari will literally watch a stacked wave coming into him. Selfmade will not go up, and then Alphari just gets dove. And I'm like,
yep.
And literally Selfmade will be on that side of the jungle. I'm like, why the fuck are you not just there? Like, I don't understand how these communication breakdowns are occurring between members of this team.
Dude, here's the thing I want to ask about.
Alphari to build Hullbreaker so he can win 1v2. There you go.
Here's the thing. Selfmade is the player, actually, I wanted to ask the question about. Because here's the problem I have with this team in general. As I would agree with Nymaera, I think Alphari's the best top laner. I actually think Perks has had something of a bounce back split. Like, he's looked pretty solid. He hasn't had that many sort of like up and down, like in the game, or like you have to like
the action, yeah.
Beyond that, but he hasn't had the sort of like in to win type games he was in Cloud9. He's actually looked pretty solid, actually. So my problem is this. So we've got the solo lanes nailed. Yeah, there's definitely problems in the bot lane. I'll give you that. But actually, here's my problem when I've watched this whole split for Vitality. Is Selfmade is the most Jekyll and Hyde fucking jungler in the whole West. He either just carries the whole fucking game and will get like 10 kills on his main champs, or he just sometimes looks like he does nothing and doesn't know what to do. And if I read an interview recently where basically he described himself as more of a follower. He's a guy, like, if someone else suggests something, maybe he'll like do it, or like, dude, I get this vibe when I watch him in the game. He looks like if he's on his champs and he has the kills and the resources, basically, he knows how to 1v9 a game solo queue style. But if he's essentially expected to be like X-Smithy, he can't do it, dude. Like, so some of these drafts, even my heart just sinks in the draft. Like, oh, fucking hell! You've drafted for a different jungler than you've got. Like, what is this?
But then typically in greatest like ironic fashion was so in the first weekend I was casting, this was the XL game, and it was like Quickshot's first game back in ages. I've hard prepped for stuff like that. You know, like Selfmade is gonna he's gonna take a lot of resources for himself eventually, stuff like this. Fucking flashes in level 1 to get the first blood and then has Hex Flash, and you realize he has a Hex Flash, and I'm sat there like, I have all of these prepared, and all he's going to do now is hex flash into lanes. And that's what he did for like the first like 10 minutes, completely like doing the opposite of everything he'd done for the last few weeks. Doesn't even win the game because mid-game gets really weird. But yeah, he's been so difficult to kind of pen down himself because he's had some, he had like that Kiana game in their first game versus Fnatic where he gets 10 kills and he's got a lot of resources and he's doing really well, having the individual agency. I don't really know what to think about Selfmade because he's had so many just strange one-off performances, randomly impacting the map or not at all. It's really hard for me to like characterize this player because he's given a lot of room to work with his solo laners, and the team is not really coordinating to get him into the right place at the right time to actually use any of that space.
Like, basically, here's the main problem. I'll summarize it in one sentence. He looks like he has some of the best mechanics of any Western jungler I've ever seen. Spoiler, that's not really like the best quality to have for a fucking jungler. Meanwhile, his actual decision-making, maybe the most important thing for a jungler, seems a bit suspect. So it's like whoever made this D&D character fucked up. They put too many points in the mechanics.
They max minned.
You should have had a little bit in fucking whatever, like intelligence or something like. Obviously, their joke is they took them all out of social skills and just put it all into like fucking Kiana or something like you're saying out there. Like, give me a break.
There's actually a dedicated Kiana stat. Actually, it's very simple. You got strength, dexterity, Kiana.
Yes.
Well, I think it's really. I also just don't see, like, the problem is I don't see any synergy with him with Labrov, and then I don't see any synergy with him and top either with Alphari. Like, Alphari just randomly dies because he's not there, or like they're not communicating where the other jungler could be. And like you're saying, Nymaera, as you pointed out on the broadcast, they know through process of elimination or through wards or through a combination of these two things where people are. And they still die, and that's very weird.
Yeah, they have the information. They have the
Whose
information.
idea was it? If you have Alphari as your top laner, why would you give him these junglers? Cersei, fucking Santorin, not even that, then fucking Grig, and then now bloody Selfmade. Like, can I just please have a ganking jungler for the love of God? I'm like the best
Malrang.
I'm literally the best laning top laner to ever play in the West. Can I please have some ganks, please? Like, this is mental, mate. It's like some nightmare simulator. What is this?
I think the concept though was that they were going to play weak side AD with this roster, but again, they couldn't have known that this is kind of like
true. You sort of have to play through
AD
now,
meta.
right? Yeah.
No,
like
the first couple of weeks they did the opposite. Like I think Alphari was like the lowest jungle percentage, like proximity or whatever it was, like in the first 3 weeks or so, and then they started stepping it up afterwards because they tried the opposite, and now they're starting to realize, well, let's just put more into Alphari. So I think they took a while to discover what they wanted to do in balancing the map.
Well, I think that a lot of teams are funneling AD resources right now. Yep. So they probably felt pressure to do that, even though this team was not constructed to funnel resources into an AD player.
And then Kazi's like playing stuff like Ezreal out of meta as well a couple of games, and it's like, can't really do that in this meta. Just it doesn't really fit the MO.
I mean, it doesn't help that Karzi is historically has been one of the worst Aphelios players in Europe in a very Aphelios meta.
Yeah, if you can't play Aphelios, I think you just ban both of them and try and... I mean, the problem is then you have to ban both first round, which is just really difficult to draft around, but I think that some teams have got to start doing that because obviously they're not winning through the bot lane meta. But we'll
Here's the sad thing, though, mate. Here's the sad thing. On the one hand, you might think from all those criticisms I just gave that like a purely rational, hyper-intellectual adults, well, I don't think they actually exist, but people pretend to be like that. You might think that I would now have the patience and the discipline, Nymaera, to tell you that Vitality won't do anything in the playoffs. But here's the problem, mate.
Sell me Vitality then. Sell me them.
I will literally never, I'm not joking, never give up on the idea that Perks can win a best of 5 series until he loses. I don't give a flying fuck. I will always believe it's possible. I'm a stan. When it comes to playoff scenarios, which I have to be, mate. He's not. I'm not joking. He transcends League of Legends, by the way. I've seen so few players who are like Western League, just like great esports. But there are so few people that are as clutch as this guy. It's fucking mental, mate. So I have to see him lose before I believe he can lose.
And he's had a couple of really good games in the last couple of weeks too. Zillion has actually been okay. Besides him misclicking the jungler instead of the AD carry with the Zolt that one fight, that was a pretty awkward one. Like he's had some really good games recently.
The champion pool also looks mega, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and the fact that you can pull out stuff like the Zillion where it feels like it's very strong. I mean, I'm not not entirely sold on the pick all the time, but I think that it is, like, I mean, you can see how it's doing in solo queue and the rest of it. As much as that's a bad analogy for pro play, I think that when Perkz is on form, there are very few players which transform a team around him like he does, and Vitality need that right now. But as long as they get into playoffs, again, that's rule one. Let's do that, and then we'll see what happens after that.
Well, I mean, they're pretty much guaranteed now. It would take a pretty epic run for them not to.
It would be hilarious if they didn't.
The other problem is this. I can't lie. I have effectively, literally rewired my brain to be broken about Perkz because I was one of the only people.
I did that with Ahri. It's okay.
I was one of the only people who, you can go back and check every talk show episode. There's loads of them out there, boys. I was one of the only people who said I didn't think it was impossible for Cloud9 to win games in that group at Worlds because I just, like I said, until I see Perkz beaten, I believe, mate. I believe. I don't believe in God, fucking UFOs, but I've got Perkz. It's like, I don't even want to believe. I just believe. I take out the want part. Someone make that poster if you've got skills. I'm fucking
no, you know that, you know like the Homer Simpson thing with like, don't forget you're here forever. Just like do it for, just do it for Perkz.
Well, Perkz is here forever. There you go. That's right. That's my poster.
In playoffs.
Exactly. I know.
Or maybe it's Perkz. It's like, don't forget, like Thorin's thinking of you.
Oh, and also, here's the other good news, though. Here's the good news. When you make a roster as expensive and as star-packed as Vitality's, you could be really worried, by the way, that, like, for example, they might just hang on to all the players and never make any changes. The good news is this as well. Like, I don't know how much say he had in Cloud9. I get the sense it's more of an org thing there. Perkz won't sit around if this team actually can't win. If this team, like, shits the bed in playoffs and they prove that,
yeah, he seems to be pretty heads up, yeah.
He'll make sure something gets done. Something will get done. Don't worry.
And I think the thing with someone like Perkz as well is that he's seen winning rosters already. So and there are some things which are kind of, you have to pick up by experience on that in terms of just seeing it happen. So yeah, I think that he'll bring a level of pragmatism to that team. But the question is, where does that kick in? How does that kick in? And as much as there needs to be a change, what's the change which will actually fix that team?
Okay. Well, the change that will fix what's going to happen in the rest of this episode is Nymaera will leave and we'll do viewer questions. Yeah, that's just what it is. It's been a long show, but we've got to get some in there. So you'll see him on the LEC at some point. Is it actually known, by the way, and are you allowed to spoiler tell us when you're next on LEC?
I actually have no idea. I'm not really sure on the rule. I'll be around.
You know what's weird, Nymaera, is that they wouldn't have you on for Super Week this next week when you would think there would be more games, so you would want more people to give to make it easier.
The initial plan was I was going to be on for 3 weeks, and they're like, "Hey, do you want to come back?" And I'm like, "Sure, I guess." So yeah.
We're aware of that.
So, no, I'm aware of that. But yeah, no, I was back for that. I'm like, sweet, cool, I'll come back for that.
By the way, technically, I don't know if the producer heard us there, but the producer just talked for a second and said we were on there. But we're fully aware of that. That's right.
That's fair. Yeah. That's fair. No,
right.
I'll be around.
We didn't want to spoil anything. We thank you for the discretion.
Fair enough. Sure. All right. We'll now do the break thing, and then we'll be back with your questions. Right, we're going to do the last section, which is, of course, the viewer questions from people who are the Grogcoin holders. We've explained that a million times. We're not going to explain it every single time, whatever. Some weeks we
go to the Discord.
Yeah, there you go. People who already have the Grogcoin know and have already asked the question. Spoiler, you wouldn't ask the question right now anyway. You have to essentially ask for next episode. So Monty's going to go through and look for some of the questions that look interesting, and we'll just answer them as we please.
All right. Here we go. Do you think imports playing abroad should be considered to represent their home countries for Asian games like Viper, Tarzan, Rookie, Core JJ? Additionally, which Korean players would you like to see their conscription requirements waived the most? All of the good ones is the answer for Korean players. Like, clearly Faker is so key to the global popularity of League of Legends and T1. Like, it would and will suck if he has to go to the military for the entire game. Like, the entire esports scene will suck more in League of Legends because Faker's not playing.
What's the question, the first part? Something like, essentially, can Viper play for Korea in the Asian games?
So would we, question is, do you think imports playing abroad should be considered to so like they can't play for China in like the Asian game?
Yes. To me, that seems obvious because essentially Asian games is sort of like an Olympic setup. It's even how they're actually flexing it with the fact that if you win a gold medal, they implied in the future they're going to let you off the military service like we were talking about here. So I think it's logical they should play for Korea, yeah.
Yep, I agree with that. Now, I will say, as a sidebar on this topic, I actually hate when team sports go to international competitions to represent their country, because I think nationalism is stupid, and because I don't want to watch, like, what's the crime of things like the World Cup is that you get worse teams with no synergy because they all have to go and play for their home country, right? You're not even getting why is the most popular tournament in soccer the one with the worst teams. Like, you actually could have better teams most of the time if you played with Champions League teams that have established synergy over years and competing and practicing together. So for me, what tilts me is I don't care about nationalism. So I just want to see the best possible competition. And you're giving me dog shit competition by forcing players to play in rosters that they don't normally play in. So fuck that. Fuck all those forms of competition. Fuck the Olympics. That isn't individual sports, etc.
I will say, people genuinely, I notice in League especially, people are so horny for this idea, but they've never actually sat down. Like, for example, I'll give you a case. Bizarrely, in Europe, there's like an inordinate amount of good players from Slovenia, believe it or not, where like Mickey X is from, for example. But it still barely makes a 5-man lineup. What people do is they just scoff it because they think mentally, Monty. They don't actually run the experiment. Try on paper, for real, if you're a fan who thinks a World Cup would be interesting, now or any point in any league history, make what the World Cup would look like. Make the real 5-man lineups. And when you quickly find out that beyond, like, Denmark and maybe Poland, you can't even make teams out of fucking like Europe that would be competitive with Korea. So what you don't realize is you think in the short term, like, but Denmark would be insane. Yeah, Denmark might be insane, but everyone else would be whack except Korea and China. So spoiler, it would actually just be a worse version of what League of Legends currently is. Yeah. Anyway, it's so whatever on that one.
It's terrible.
It sounds good on paper, but it's never usually as good in practice.
Yeah. In a hypothetical scenario where you owned or were never forced to sell a League of Legends team, would you hire LS as your head coach? My answer to that is no. I would hire him as a strategic coach because I think he offers very interesting ideas, is obviously has an extraordinary work ethic, is creative, like thinks about the game in his own way. But I think that for the way that most teams are operating these days, he is still a bit on the younger side. And I think that you can hire somebody like, take, for example, somebody like Giotto or somebody like that, or Grabs, who we know has very good interpersonal skills. And I think that there's probably a great way to implement Ellis's ideas through a filter that would be better than having him be a head coach, in my opinion. Yeah,
basically, the analogy I would give is this. LS isn't supposed to be the CEO. He's supposed to be like the fucking chief advisor, or like a guy who's a specialist that you bring in. And the premise goes, he feeds his suggestions to the CEO, and then the CEO is the one who makes the choice as to whether you should do that. Because the problem is, for head coach, I think LS is actually inappropriate for that role. You think of some of the things you'd want from a head coach. You want things like reliability, emotional stability. Like, there's a million things. Like, listen, he's my mate, but he's already falling down like a motherfucker on all these points, and it's not working out for him. It's not about skills, it's about what you bring to the table.
Here's the analogy, and I'll probably fuck this up, Thorin, so you can tell me if it's accurate, because I'm not a big basketball fan. But the way that the Bulls used Phil Jackson as opposed to Tex Winter. Now, Tex Winter was the guy who implemented the actual strategy of the triangle offense, right, Thorin? And Phil Jackson was the one who was managing some really big personalities on the team. And like, to me, I would rather have LS be like the Tex Winter guy than the Phil Jackson guy. Is that a fair analogy to make?
It's actually the reason why I've pointed out on these shows, and it might get lost on fans. What I don't get is this. Cloud9 has come to me unsolicited on many, many moves they've made in history, or even before they make a move, sometimes just ask, what do I think of this guy? What's bizarre is this is one of the only times ever where they didn't say anything at all to me. And the joke is, even though he's my friend, I would have told them, I would really not suggest hire him as their coach. Like, I think this is not going to work for these, but they didn't ask. This is the one time they didn't ask, believe it or not. So again, it's not about whether you like the guy, it's about whether he could do the job, isn't he?
Yeah, and I think it's a bummer not to have him involved in a coaching role, because some really cool shit was coming out of it, and it was really fun to talk about, frankly.
By the way, here's another thing to say as well. I even think for LS it's bad. I don't think he's suited to that role. The problem he has is this at the moment in League of Legends. It's what used to happen to me when I had to be the editor-in-chief of all these websites. I wasn't very suited for that role. Like, I can do like the editing part. I just don't like working on other people's stuff as I like working on mine. But I had to take the gig back in the day because it was the only way you got the power to do what you wanted in your own part of the industry. So I feel like head coaches like that for LS. In a realistic world, we'd be already 20 years down the line, and there'd be so much money, he'd get paid a king's ransom to be this like remote coach, assistant coach, whatever. There's just, in the current scenario, it's not actually worth the time for him to do anything except be a head coach. But it's just unfortunately, it's not really the appropriate way he's at in his life to do that role right now, unfortunately.
Well, it's also the same problem with kind of Western esports in general, where if you are a big streamer, it's better for you to be a streamer as a player, as a coach, as whatever, than it is because you just get paid more money. So unfortunately, we've created a stupid cult of personality in Western esports that is more profitable than actually being good at the game you're working with. So good on us for doing that, guys.
Doublelift basically hacked the system, didn't he? Because the only thing that used to ruin Doublelift's great marketable personality was when he kept losing in the bloody game. Well, the joke is now he doesn't even play in the game, so now we can just say everyone's shit, and then the whole time it's like, well, there's nothing can come back to direct me now. Yes, and now it just works. Now the brand just hits every time, doesn't it?
Yeah. All right.
And also, I will say, low key, no one's even thought of this angle yet of the revenge. If you really wanted to fuck with Reggie, he not only has Lena for real, he's also taken it from the TSM org. Like this guy, listen, I just didn't like TSM. This guy must have a fucking revenge oath against him. Fucking hell, mate. He's destroying him completely. This is some like MonteCristo level shit, mate. It's just Doublelift, isn't it? Fucking hell. By the way, I'm not saying Doublelift has never read the character. I thought he could even watch the movie. He'd get bored halfway. There's no anime shit, is there?
He'll do something now, like team up with Vulcan and then destroy TSM. That would be the ultimate blow. Yes. The Doublelift Vulcan lane.
Exactly. Obviously, the dream is that at some point in time, like Reginald essentially doesn't have a team or job anymore, and then Vulcan just like passes him a fucking McDonald's application thing or something. That's how this needs to end, guys. That's the end of this version of Avengers Endgame. It has to end like that with Reggie just vanquished.
I will say, Thorin, I was a bit impatient because it did take 10 years for Reggie to actually have his true character be known to the world, which is amazing because it was caught on film. I was waiting for, I will say, eventually, if people behave badly enough and are incompetent enough, they will eventually collapse. I didn't think it was going to take this long, but it is satisfying at least that it's happening now. It is. It's not. It doesn't say good things about the esports industry that this didn't happen sooner. That's all.
Do you know what tilted me? Here's how I heard about it. Right, I just heard people going, "Did you see Doublelift's criticism of Reggie?" And I was like, "What? No, where is it?" And they were like, "Oh, it's crazy. He was pulling up all clips and everything. Reggie being abusive." And I was like, "Holy shit!" I went in and it was just the Game Cribs clips. I'm like, "Those are the clips from 2013." Like you're now acting as though it's like you know that meme they put on the internet where you'll do a thing where it's like there's like a woman who like a Latin woman with like amazing tits and arse, and then the joke is like in the background there's a boat or something. Like the joke is like the male eye would just look at the woman, wouldn't it? Right. The joke here is that you're all like, if you sort of like freeze frame it, you can almost see like Reginald's being abused. It's like that was on camera. There wasn't even anything else. In fact, the whole scene was even sort of like, and now our owner's been a bit of a fuck up. It's like, it was even the TSM documentary, for fuck's sake. It's not even like it was like hidden, like candid cameras. Like he even signed off on it being put out, for fuck's sake. The whole thing's so ludicrous, isn't it? I know it's so bad.
I did feel. So I will say over the years, and especially when that stuff came out, I did feel like I was maybe going insane because the whole world was just gaslighting me that this was acceptable behavior. And I was like, hello, anybody looking at this over here?
Now people are making it seem like it's like the Mandela effect. Like, you won't believe this. It turns out Reginald is evil. Like, I'm like, what? What's going on? What is this? Anyway, whatever. Next question.
Also, Thorin, I love that we did the watch party with the Game Cribs like 2 years ago. And we even brought these clips back up recently. And by the way, 100,000 plus people watched that shit that we made, and still it didn't really have any effect. Like fucking crazy. Anyway, C9 made a change that surprised fans and made statements that provided no meaningful insight into the decision. Reports from players, coaches, etc. involved are veiled, non-specific regarding awareness of issues and portray an amicable nature to the event. In the know, industry personalities point to fans' lack of behind-the-scenes knowledge to curb speculation, but withhold any meaningful information they may have. I actually think nobody actually has information on this issue.
Oh, no. I will say this. I've tried even like, let's say, just like drawing on my source network. Every person has a different story on this one, Monty. Yeah. Like I've never seen as many comments. This is almost like some high school shit. Like the story just changes and it's like this person was wrong, but then the other person was totally wrong and the other one, like, if anything, it's like the signal noise has made it harder to know what the fuck could have happened.
I mean, I've heard things, but haven't been able to substantiate really anything about it. So it's like, everything I've heard has been secondary sources. I have no primary sources on this. So it's hard to tell what's been going on. I don't know how much of this, because LS says that he can't say things because of lawyers, like how much of this is going to turn into a legal dispute over his contract. Like, I think probably, I don't know if I speculated because he wasn't saying things about C9, that probably C9 did pay out at least a part of his contract, but maybe
Maybe they will in the future.
Maybe they will, maybe they're not, and he wants them to. Maybe they're not paying as much as LS would like, and he would like, his full contract. I don't know anything. Okay, guys. So
I will say, by the way, I know, like, from the few lawyers I know in esports, for lawyers in general, they do think it's a nightmare that, like, remember, the perfect scenario for a lawyer, as far as I know, is this, right? I've got the case is done. Now, what we need to do is control all the information in this case, guys. So we're not going to say anything to anyone about this, and we're just going to go to court and we're going to try the case. In esports, it's like, what's that? So we haven't even gone to court yet, and they've already done a tweet longer and a video, and they've told every single detail and rumors and like made unsubstantiated, like, oh fucking hell, like the joke is, like, if you're the lawyer, you're just tearing your hair out before you even got to court, aren't you? Like, so the premise is, believe it or not, this might be the only time ever LS is actually nailing it. Like, so far he hasn't given any of the key information out yet, and if he doesn't do that, that might actually help his case, as far as I can tell.
Yeah. So anyway, I don't think anybody does know, and my take on it is that if I was Cloud9, I would have just spilled everything. I would have just gone and put it all out there. I don't know why they're not doing that. Like I've said previously, Jack is very conflict averse. He was also dealing with his father, unfortunately, who died this past week. And it was, in hospice care, and Jack's been very, like, open on social media about talking about that. And so he was going through a personal tragedy, and maybe he just, he was trying to help the team as much as possible, but didn't have the extra effort to put in the PR.
Just to emphasize, in case people don't know what you mean by that, as in, it's not just that coincidentally he just got a call one day like, oh, you've had a family tragedy. As in, it was one of those ones where they move the person back because they can't do anything for them, and it's just known you're going to essentially give them painkillers until eventually they're no longer alive. So unfortunately, essentially, this will be a scenario where the whole last few weeks, I'm sure this was like the main thing in the back of his head.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's been ongoing for quite some time. I mean, several months ago, Jack announced it publicly. It's obviously really sad. His father was very close to, Jack and his father were very close. His father was at all, Bob was at all the esports events. I know Bob quite.
I even met him when I went one time.
Yeah, he's a lovely man. Like, it's really fucking sad. He was really active in this, in the scene, and, it sucks a lot. So I think in Jack's case, like, he had to deal with his team internally first, which is obviously the order of operations that you go, and maybe he didn't have the time or energy to deal with the public nature of this. And I think that's fair. So, it's hard to know what's going on. If that scenario didn't exist, my take is that Cloud9 should have just been extremely transparent with this, because I think they ended up looking worse by not being transparent.
Right.
But I don't know. Maybe there are other reasons, because I don't know the reasons. So that's my kind of ignorant take on this situation.
Also, even though I suspect, if I had to, like, imagine what the intentions might be at Cloud9, I think there's even an angle, by the way, where they think they're doing a favor to LS since they cut him so early. Like, well, let's not say whatever he did or whatever he might have done. That might, make people hate on him, or it might haunt him and follow him around the community. Like those stories follow people like LS himself and Ocelot, and basically anyone who's ever done anything vaguely considered wrong. It just haunts you forever in esports. People bring it up if they hate you. Right? There's a world in which I could believe that, but my problem is this. I think when it's as extreme a situation like this, like you fired someone 2 weeks in, this reminds me, Monty, of this case that has happened a bunch of times in League and Overwatch, where they will ban a player or suspend a player, but they'll be very vague. They'll just say he used language that was not wrong. Now, here's the problem I have with that, Monty, is in the modern day, especially knowing the impact of media and knowing that people will witch hunt, when you actually leave it vague, that means if I didn't do the worst thing, I essentially get punished as if I did. So in the case I gave example there of when people get punished for like things they've typed in solo queue, I actually need to know in this scenario. I need to know, did he just type like, guys, what the fuck, why don't you ever gank? Like, that's very different, like being obnoxious, from if he typed loads of racial slurs or wrote some outrageous thing. So in the same scenario, one reason I don't like this situation here is because for both Cloud9 and LS, it's just allowing people to project things that seem way more extreme than even the stories I was hearing. So now people really think that, like, did someone like have a fight or did someone do something that, I don't even want the world where that's on the table. I'd rather it was just like, at least give us like don't have to be too specific, but give us like the nature of what it was that caused the dispute,
And here's the thing, guys, like, people behave differently in person than they do online. Like, and like, you can't know how it's going to be to have somebody full-time in an environment, even, and this is the most outrageous take by fans, by the way, which is like, well, you knew what you were getting with LS. It's like, no, you knew the theoretical aspects of his coaching, which obviously Cloud9 signed on to, but you don't know how it's going to be implemented in the flesh in person. And here's something for you, Thorin. I'm not actually sure Jack has ever met LS in person before this. I don't know.
He may possibly did in Korea, but I doubt it.
He may have in Korea, but at the same time, like LS didn't meet a lot of people face-to-face in person. And during the pandemic, Jack wasn't going anywhere. So it's not like he flew out to Korea to interview LS. So the fact that these people hadn't necessarily met or interacted in person, or the in-person implementation of the strategies, is perfectly reasonable. And people will say, well, Cloud9's incompetent because they didn't, give it time. It's like, actually, my take is it's a competent organization that can identify that there's going to be an impasse early and just get rid of the problem instantly, right? And say, we know we can extrapolate where this is going. It's not meshing with our structure within the org, or there are certain core issues. And so we need to get rid of it as fast as possible because it's better for LS and it's better for us in the long run if we don't just pussyfoot around and wait for this problem to get bigger, or see that pretend it's going to get solved when it's clearly not going to get solved. There's a core difference here. So in my mind, it's actually better for C9 and better for LS that the disruption has been minimized as much as possible to both of their existences moving forward. And no, I don't think that C9's remote, identification of LS or their remote interview process, it means that this was necessarily a good fit for the team. So we can just get rid of that. I don't even know what this is supposed to mean. Why did Reggie give Ol Yeller rabies? I don't know what, I don't get the joke. But Pounder 420, classic question from you. Any updates on future plans for Grog beyond SI questions? We will do stuff eventually, guys. Just hodl in the meantime. Most of you, the value's gone up significantly. Almost everybody. So we do want to do merch. We do want to do live event stuff. We do want to have other applications for Grogcoin. Yes. With former friends turned bitter enemies Colby Covington and Jorge Street Judas Masvidal fighting this weekend, what is the grudge match you most want to see in League of Legends? Come on, Reggie versus Hotshot. Let's go. Let's pull back the classic.
I don't know. Right now, I think I'd rather see Reggie versus Doublelift.
That's true.
Because here's the other thing. It's going to be spicy as fuck with who's cornering Doublelift, isn't it? Ooh, all I'm saying,
that's
boys.
True. That's true.
Yeah, I like to get the emotional fucking dagger in there as well, not just like the classic one,
The promos for that could be great too. I would love
good
to see,
one would be Carlos versus Sam Matthews.
Yeah, I'd love to see Mark Merrill versus Dom.
That's a good one.
That'd be a good one.
That also's got some deep fucking lore to it, if you know the history going back. It's not just the recent shit, boys.
All right, we have a CSGO question. Should FaZe be thinking about booting their all-time legend Rain and signing JKS? For those of you who don't know, FaZe won with JKS as a substitute. IEM Katowice, that happened this last weekend. And who of them would give FaZe the most chance to finally get that major win in May? So Rain, who hasn't he played for every single game of FaZe ever up until this point? So he's been the longest running member of the team.
Until the semis, yes. The basic problem is this. That's the main reason why people can't actually think of this as like a real like football trade of like, should you do the problem is, obviously, if you're a fan of the team, you have the ultimate like bias towards this player who's never not been in the team, and more importantly, he's always usually been at least pretty good or like a competent player, blah, blah, blah. The problem is this. I do think Rain's like seen a lot better years in the past. JKS, look, I can't know how he'd fit. I mean, he played like different roles and different lineups in this team. But put it this way, like I did think he added like an extra element. I thought they looked really interesting. I would love to see how Carrigan would use JKS permanently. So I would make that trade. I would do it. Or at a minimum, I'd sign him as the sixth player and, like make you compete for the spot or something. I thought it looked great. I would love to see that lineup play more tournaments.
Don't you think that part of FaZe's success, though, is probably because nobody had film on JKS with FaZe, so a lot of the prep wasn't super valuable?
It helps a bit, but you have to realize, because the two teams that were playing in the final were like brand new teams, basically, with like massive overhaul. Like, it meant that actually it was sort of just like it's almost like you just play the match and see who's playing well. I don't think it was as much of a strategical game as like CS usually is,
And also part of it was Navi's performance, which is the next question from Micah Chu. Do you think current world events affected Navi's performance at IEM Katowice? Almost certainly. Forget
Navi. There was 3 CIS teams, and all 3 lost all their matches. Between them, they didn't win, I think, a single map. They might have won one map. I don't think they won a single map. and they all looked way worse. And here's the problem. Of the 3 CIS teams, if it had only been Gambit that underperformed, that's fine, because that's what Gambit is in their narrative at the moment. Like, they get to the big match on stage, but they haven't got very much experience, so they're not expected to win. The problem is, Virtus Pro normally is one of the hardest teams to beat. They just capitulated the SEPA map completely. And Na'Vi, look, if you've just seen Na'Vi play the last year, they've never played as bad as this online, I don't think. So unfortunately, I do think if you look at the combined like amount of people we're talking about here, it's just too much for that to be a pure coincidence. And before anyone says like, but m0NESY played well. First of all, m0NESY just played well, but we haven't got the A/B test on it. We've never seen him play any other lands. And then secondly, he's also Russian, which in this case is a little bit more significant. I'm more worried about the Ukrainian players than I am the Russian players in this circumstances. Even though I will say, thanks to what a shithole community esports is, I saw loads of people trying to witch hunt everyone Russian and try and force them to publicly out their own country while maybe even living there, which could have real world consequences on you. Yeah. By the way, don't ever demand someone else takes a moral action that they have to suffer the consequences for. You do what you think's morally right, and you let them worry about themselves. So anyway, that's by the by. I think overall, unfortunately, as much as everyone hoped it wouldn't be the case, it's why I purposely said on Twitter, I didn't put pressure on them by saying, like, imagine if you... I just put, like, I would get it if Na'Vi failed. Just think how cool it would be if they could win in spite of it. That's the way I think you should frame it. In any scenario, brother, not just war. If someone's having a kid, if someone's family member dies, what I always say is this: that is the ultimate get out of jail free card. If you, by the way, if you choose even not to play the match, I don't blame you. But if you play the match and you can then somehow play epically well, I think you get even more props. That's the way I do it, you know.
Yeah, I think it's very understandable that, you know, Na'Vi is concerned about their homes, friends, family, way of, you know, returning to their way of life, because Navi's entirely based out of Kyiv, right? So, you know,
so it's awkward.
Disrupts their career. Disrupts their family.
Dude, their team as well is literally Ukrainian and Russian players.
Yes,
you've also got that awkward thing of like remember in that scenario, like, who even wants to have those conversations with people or be indifferent tonight? Like, I think it threw the whole chemistry of the whole, like I say, all the CIS teams off, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Understandably so. Remember as well, it's not even just, by the way, as simple as their countries are at war. Some of them might even be thinking, can I ever return? Remember, at the moment, you can't like leave the country if you're the age of these players. Like, at this point in time, some of them might even be thinking, like, fuck, am I ever going home? Am I seeing my family? It's I don't think anyone's ever been in this situation in esports, to be fair.
Yeah, and there's also probably enormous pressure on the Ukrainians because, as Thorin says, they can't leave the country because they're expected to fight right now. Like, even if they can return, are they going to have to go to war themselves? It's like a real question. That's fucking scary. So, I mean, hard to play well under this.
What I would say is this: the one problem is this: everyone's analysed all the angles like this of like what happens now. Obviously, the one part I think people really haven't thought about, because unfortunately it's going to put a real damper on CS:GO, is remember, as I've just alluded to, at the moment some of the absolute best CS:GO teams, including the #1 team, are from the CIS region. Well, here's the bad part. At the moment, with how it currently stands, if any of those players go back, as far as I can tell, there will be no Russian players in Counter-Strike anymore. Until this whole thing is resolved, they will not be able to leave and they will not be able to attend the tournament. So unfortunately, who knows what's going to happen in the next few months? Like, there could be a world where CS is essentially like got a massive asterisk next to it for 3 months. Who knows? Who can possibly know?
Yeah, it's really difficult to understand like how long a lot of these scenarios are going to last, what the travel restrictions might be on Russian citizens, because now they've banned all of the Russian flights from EU airspace. So, I mean, I think it's going to be hard for a lot of these players who are going to have to pick between like seeing their families and friends and homes and like not going, and you know, they might actually just be deported to Russia too. Like, who knows how EU countries are going to react to this. Everything is so crazy right now, and the situation is changing so fast that it's really tough to know. But certainly we're going to get worse esports out of it. And also, Thorin, I think this is another thing. Like, there's pressure right now on FIFA and the IOC to ban Russian athletes from competition. And what happens if esports tournament organizers follow that logic? Like, what happens if the Olympics and FIFA ban Russian competition internationally at Olympics events or at the World Cup? Well, then all of a sudden, do the tournament organizers also decide to ban Russian esports players? Luckily,
Luckily, the number one tournament organizer in CSGO is ESL, who, as we've pointed out on the Four Horsemen, is owned by that fucking investment group, which is owned by the Saudi theocratic government. So, luckily, Monty, if there's ever one group of people who, by the way, would have no fucking place to ever be making statements about these things or be putting some sort of sanctions on anyone else, it'd be ESL, surely. So maybe that gets taken care of. Who knows?
Maybe the Saudi government wants to virtue signal. I don't know, man. It's who can know what happens these days. Who can know? But yeah, I think it's rough. What's the biggest competition you've ever won? Could be esports related. Could be any competitive endeavor. Interesting.
One
that I've won.
Like, technically, I guess for me, it's just like the Esports Journalist of the Year award or whatever the fuck. What else could it be, right? I haven't competed in that sense. I mean, my joke would be I did beat Hall of Fame star Shaquille O'Neal in a 1-on-1 live on television. Listen, I mean, that sound like in basketball, but I'm just leaving it at that. You know, I destroyed him. What are you talking about? It's first to 9. I 9-0'd him.
We won the TSM Holy War, Thorin.
That was true. I mean, as we point out every week, the implications of that just get more and more crazy, don't they? It's like the fucking Crusades with me. It actually is what all of history sort of hinged on, apparently.
I think in terms of gaming, so here's an interesting story. So I used to play this game, Crimson Skies, which was an arcade dogfighting game.
Yes, I remember this.
On Xbox Live. And I used to be like one of the top like 10 players in the world in that game. And so I actually won some tournaments that people would come to in that game in 1v1 dogfights in person, like LANs basically. But the funny thing about this story is that Doa and I found this out years later, but Doa and I actually played Crimson Skies scrims on Xbox Live when he was in college and I was still in high school. Probably I would say 7 or 8 years before we met each other in person. And we played on voice chat. And he was the number one player in Crimson Skies. So I spent probably a year playing almost daily like Crimson Skies scrims with him and the other best players on the ladder, because we would just go into private lobbies and play ourselves. And neither of us put this together until we had met in person like a year. And we were both like, oh yeah, I loved playing Crimson Skies. And then we had this moment where like, holy shit, it was actually you. So we just randomly met online years before we knew each other in person. So that was pretty fun.
Well, I've got an anecdote I can give you because I used it on, I think, By the Numbers years ago, but obviously it's a different crowd. There's not as much overlap with CSGO. I'll tell a very brief anecdote, which goes like this. When I was younger, not a child, key detail here, but when I was in my teens and I used to frequent a comic book shop, can you believe that, guys? That's before I went full-time in fucking video game esports journalism. So you can imagine the sort of person I was back then. Very different, less based, let's put it that way. Right, and when I went to this comic book shop, because if you go to comic book shops to do things like play games like Magic or whatever, right, it depends on who's in the shop as to whether you can play the game or not. So what would happen is, even though I much obviously preferred to play like Magic the Gathering or some like more like adult game, if people don't know, the Pokemon trading card game was even by Wizards of the Coast. It's just a really like stripped down version of Magic the Gathering, basically, without like all advanced interactions and stuff, especially the first like 151 or whatever Pokemon. It's basically like Babby's first version of Magic, because obviously their premise, I'm sure, was once the kids grow up, we hope they then transition into Magic and it's like lifelong customers. So what used to happen was every now and then there wouldn't be someone around in this comic book shop you could play Magic the Gathering with, but there'd be some fucking like 13-year-old, they weren't Zoomers back then, but the equivalent of a Zoomer going like, I got a Charizard. So what you do is you go, all right, kid, I tell you what, I've got a deck of that, so fucking let's play some Pokemon then. You'd play it, right? So then what happened was this comic book shop I used to frequent held a little local tournament. So that's right, are you ready? This is some classic shit. I actually did rock up to this kids Pokemon tournament, because technically there was no age limit, and I destroyed these motherfuckers, Monty. I won every single game except one, and it was a round robin format. In the final, I shit on everyone, and this is the punchline to the whole thing. I didn't just rock up at a children's Pokemon tournament. Again, technically no age, but let's be real, it's Pokemon. I didn't just rock up and beat everyone, but as I was beating people, they'd go back to their parents. These are like 10-year-old kids, and they'd go like, I lost. And they go, oh, which kid did you lose to? And they'd point at me, and I was like, I'd say like an 18-year-old kid, like, all right. And then the best part of it all, this is the funniest part of it all, is that at the end, it was totally already announced, right, on the poster, that the winner was that you'd get like a whole box of Pokemon cards. Like I'm talking like, you know how much those boosters, right? A whole box is like $250 or something, it's like some crazy amount. So at the end, this is insane, Monty. It turns out all the kids stuck around because they knew whichever kid wins is going to get that box and open it. You're going to get to see like, you know, did you get Charizard? Did you get like all the best shit, right? And so here's the kicker. When I won, I'd actually read the small print. I don't want any Pokemon cards. The small print said, or store credit. So I said, I'll take the store credit. And I just left. And then they were like, what do you mean? And I was like, I don't want the Pokemon cards. And then the guy just put the box away and all the kids were like, oh. And then like, they were like, then they all had to leave. So I not only wrecked them, I took everything from these motherfuckers. There we go. That's a story for you.
That's epic.
It's epic, innit? I know. I just took like the comic books I already had on reserve or whatever. Like, I know. It's so whack, innit? It's so whack. Get fucked. That's taught them a valuable lesson. Yeah. Level up if you want to win this game.
Yeah, I was getting pretty good at the Legends of the Five Rings like card game, the LCG game that they canceled during the pandemic. I placed very highly at a tournament in Phoenix that I went to right before the pandemic started. So that was a bummer. I was pretty good at that. But most of the games I've been good at have been tabletop games, honestly. There was a time when, if you guys know, like miniatures games, I played a game called Mage Knight. And they had a national ranking system based on kind of tournaments that they would roll out at local stores. So I was, you know, in high school in Colorado. And so I would go in Colorado to events, and I legit didn't lose a single game of Mage Knight in 9 months of competition, got myself into third in the world, and then quit because I was bored because nobody could beat me. But I never went to outside of my state. So I don't know. Who knows what that could have been. But yeah, a lot of my success has been in like tabletop gaming as opposed to video gaming. Because
should we do the last question?
My mechanics suck, guys. My mechanics suck. That's the truth. Decision making good, mechanics suck.
Oh, yeah, by the way, the obvious joke though is like in the end the joke is on me, because I'm pretty sure if I took that actual original 150 Pokemon, if I just didn't open that is like Bitcoin, like where you bought it for like $1. That would actually now be worth. The joke is I actually did the Team Liquid, Monty. You know where like 58th place was like 8 Bitcoins. Well, I'm that guy. I'm the guy who just took like the $20, aren't I? So actually, the punchline really is the kids won out on me, didn't they? I fucking got right. Although I wouldn't have. I would have opened them all anyway. So who gives a fuck?
I mean, I went back to Colorado for Christmas and pulled out some, because I played a very little bit of Pokemon when it came out because I was playing Magic at the time, and I have like a shadowless Charizard, and apparently it's worth like several $1,000s. But my very small, honestly, Pokemon collection, I have a bunch of like foils and stuff that I tweeted out. You guys can look for them if you want, trying to get price estimations on them, and seems like it's worth a decent amount of money. Anyway. That's it. That's the last question. So we're done.